Chapter 92. The universe of absorption technique allowed one to use a universal space to store external objects, saving them the trouble of carrying them around. Universal spaces were rare in the mortal world, and only the great factions of countries had them. Each one of them was priceless, and it was almost impossible for Yang Wu to obtain one. However, there was a secret technique called the universe of absorption technique that allowed one to open a universal space within their body and store things inside. However, this secret technique did not belong to the mortal world. For little He to possess such a technique, it was clear how extraordinary its origins were. Yang Wu said with incomparable joy, "Little He, come, trample on me as much as you want." Ever since he had learned of Little He's abilities, he naturally hoped that Little He could teach him more. He could not wait to become even more powerful. Don't be so smug. The universe of absorption technique is an immortal technique, and it is not something that can be cultivated by mortals. You've already swallowed the immortal peach core, which has given you an immortal body, so I want to see if you have the same ability, Little He said. Is that peach core really that powerful? Yang Wu asked. Of course not. The immortal peach core blossoms every 30,000 years, bears fruit every 30,000 years, and ripens every 30,000 years. Anyone who eats it will gain immortality and return to their youth. As for its core, it is the crystallization of the immortal peach core. If you swallow it, you'll gain an immortal body. Can't you feel how miraculous it is? Little He rolled its eyes as it spoke. Speaking of this, it recalled its sad past. If it hadn't been tricked by monkey goo to steal the immortal peach core, it would not have been sent to the mortal world to suffer. Yang Wu nodded repeatedly. I can feel it. It really is miraculous. Then hurry up and teach me the universe of absorption technique. I think I can do it. Release your divine court and pay attention to receiving the chance. Little He nodded, then shot out an inexplicable force from between her eyebrows and rushed into Yang Wu's forehead. Yang Wu's god's spiritual orifice had already been opened, so he could withstand Little He's power. When this power entered his god's court, a chant rang out in his mind. The human body is the universe. With the god's court as the virtual world and the dantian as the furnace, one can store the chi of heaven and earth. With the art of heaven and earth, and with the help of the divine consciousness, one can open up a world and accommodate the universe. This chant was not difficult to understand. It required the use of the chi of heaven and earth and the divine consciousness to open up a space in one's dantian, thus achieving the ability to store things. Unconsciously, Yang Wu tried it according to the incantation. He used his divine sense of the divine court to combine with the chi in his dantian. That Chong meridian came into effect and was instantly connected. There seemed to be a tense connection between the two. They could communicate with each other, so he could see his body more clearly. As for the peach pit dantian, he could see it clearly in his mind. There was no mistake at all. He could see it much more clearly than ordinary inner vision. At the same time, he also discovered that there was an indiscernible and untouchable chi in his god's court. It was formless and formless, but it always existed. It was the divine consciousness. Now, the spiritual power of the divine court was like an invisible flower bud that had just bloomed. It was also known as the spirit aperture. The spirit aperture was completely different from ordinary apertures. It was a hidden aperture, and some people could not open it in their entire lives, even if they were peerless masters. However, once the spirit aperture was opened, the spiritual power would continue to grow and bring about endless benefits. Right now, Yang Wu wanted to practice the art of taking in heaven and earth. The first condition was to open the spirit aperture and connect it with the dantian. Only then could he complete this step. To open up another space in my body, I must guide the divine consciousness, spirit, and chi to combine and condense into a new Shumi power to form a world of its own. Yang Wu looked at the situation in his body and muttered to himself. Then, he used the spiritual strength and chi to condense together, preparing to open up a small world. This small world was chosen by Yang Wu to be above the dantian, near the intersection of the stomach and the navel. It was the most ideal position. Under the entanglement of the two completely different powers, the power in the dantian kept surging. It fell to the abdomen position selected by Yang Wu and began to form a small space. The power of Shumi formed a screen and surrounded the empty space, forming a small vacuum area, isolating the internal organs and meridians in the body. It was as if another internal organ had automatically formed in the body. It was not material, but a small world condensed by power. However, the small world was pathetically small. It felt like it could not even hold something the size of a little finger. Yang Wu came back to his senses for meditation and found that the sun was already high in the sky. He sighed and said, "It's true that there is no time in cultivation." Then he said to Little Hay, who was not far away, "Little Hay, I've already opened up the tranquil space that you taught me, but it feels so small." Little Hay jumped up and wagged its little tail as it came to Yang Wu. It barked twice, then used its consciousness to communicate with Yang Wu. "Woof, woof, I just taught you the tranquil space this morning. It's only been half a day and you've already opened it?" "Yes, there should be no mistake. The spiritual strength and qi can be combined to open up a vacuum area in the abdomen. That should be the location of the tranquil space." Yang Wu nodded in response. Then he said, "After I condensed most of my spiritual strength and qi, I could only open up a small space. I guess it can be considered a failure. Whether it's a failure or not, we'll know once we try to take this stone." Little Hay used its front paw to point at a medium-sized stone to the side and said, "All right, I'll give it a try." Yang Wu said as he looked at the stone that was about the size of a human head. Then he stared at the stone. 1 look, 2 looks, 3 looks. After a long while, his eyes began to feel sore and uncomfortable, but the stone did not move at all. Yang Wu looked at Little Hay and said dejectedly, "It really failed." "It really failed? Do you know how to put it away?" Little Hay asked in confusion. Isn't it just looking at it and thinking about it enough to put it away?" Yang Wu hesitated for a moment before replying with a question. Little Hay rolled its eyes and rolled over on the ground. It looked as if it had been defeated and said, "You idiot! If you want to put something away, you have to use your consciousness and spiritual strength to sense it and summon it into your space." Yang Wu's face reddened. He coughed lightly and said, "Ahem, that. Why didn't you say so earlier? You almost made me cry. What can I do about an idiot like you?" Little Hay continued to roll on the ground as it rolled its eyes. Yang Wu was extremely disdainful. He immediately used his consciousness and spiritual strength to sense the stone. Then he yelled, "Store!" Right at this moment, the stone that had been right in front of him suddenly disappeared. Yang Wu used his inner vision to look at his abdomen. He discovered that there was an additional stone in that small space, and this stone took up about 1/10 of the space. According to this ratio, this small space was about half the size of a square meter. Yang Wu exclaimed with joy, "The tranquil space can really store things." "Do you know how big the space is now? Is it about the size of a stone?" Little Hay crawled up and asked. Yang Wu replied, "No, it's a little bigger than this." Little Hay asked in surprise, "Is it about the size of 2 stones?" "I think it should be able to store about 10 stones." Yang Wu pondered for a moment before replying. Little Hay's canine eyes shone with a sharp light as it stared directly at Yang Wu's body. Yang Wu felt as if he was naked in front of Little Hay. He hurriedly covered his crotch and said nervously, "Little Hay, what are you doing? What are you covering up for? Your little bird is nothing in front of me. I'm just checking to see if you're lying. The first time you opened up a chink in space, it was only about half the size of a square meter. Your perception and aptitude are only SOSO." Little Hay said disdainfully. In reality, it was secretly astonished. This brat's cultivation talent isn't all that outstanding, but he has great potential in the future. The chink in space that he just opened up is actually so big. It's obvious that his spiritual sense and profound energy have combined perfectly. It must have a lot to do with the peach pit and the primordial profound energy. Yang Wu felt very hurt. He kicked Little Hay and said, "Little Hay, it's fine if you want to insult me, but you can't insult my little brother. This is too much." After receiving Yang Wu's kick, little He threatened, "If you dare to be disrespectful to this immortal emperor, be careful that this immortal emperor doesn't teach you any immortal techniques in the future. Don't even think about getting any old medicines or spirit medicines." Yang Wu immediately admitted defeat and said, "Haha, little He, don't be angry. It was just an accident. Come, let's go take care of that big guy." Little He naturally couldn't be bothered to bicker with Yang Wu. It quickly jumped onto Yang Wu's shoulder and went with Yang Wu to find a black steel bear to practice with. Before leaving, Yang Wu put the heads of the brute generals into his Chinko space. He comforted himself by saying, "Putting the heads of dead people into my body can ward off evil. Yes, that must be it." Soon, Yang Wu arrived at the black steel bear's territory. Many of the nearby trees were broken, and the weeds and rocks were in a mess. It was obvious that this was the result of the battle last night. "Little He, where's that guy?" Yang Wu asked Little He, who was on his shoulder. "It's in the cave up ahead." Little He pointed in a direction and said, "Black Steel Bear, hurry up and come out. This Viscount will take you on," Yang Wu shouted with an expression of extreme desire for battle. For some reason, after he opened his meridians, the blood in his body became more and more intense. There was a battle intent surging in his blood, as if urging him to find a battle. Now is the time. Under Yang Wu's clamor, a large black bear charged out of the cave. It was the black steel bear that Yang Wu had encountered last night. It waved its arms and shouted angrily, "Human, you were the one who provoked me last night. Did you steal the treasure in my cave?" Yang Wu faced the black steel bear again without any fear. Instead, he was full of fighting spirit and said, "This Viscount disdains being a thief. This little guy is the real thief. Woof, woof, don't talk nonsense. This celestial emperor can take something from it. That's its blessing," Little He said unhappily. "Little He, you're right. It's this big guy's blessing. Call me Lord Celestial Emperor from now on. That name doesn't sound as domineering as Little He's. You all deserve to die." The black steel bear saw that the human and dog were ignoring it. It finally charged toward Yang Wu in a rage. Chapter 93. Last night, the black steel bear had just fought with a top-level barbarian general. Its injuries were not light. There was a cracked wound on its abdomen, and the bloodstains were still clearly visible. However, it did not seem to be affected by its injuries. When it ran, it moved like a moving mountain. Its feet stepped on the ground, causing the nearby mountains to shake. Its momentum could be said to be quite shocking. Yang Wu looked at the big guy and shouted, "Little He, watch how I deal with this big guy." Little He replied calmly, "I won't help you this time. I'll watch you be beaten into a pig's head. You have so little confidence in me. Kill." After Yang Wu responded unhappily, he went up to the black steel bear. He formed a seal with his palms and threw out 2 palms across the air. 2 streams of chi containing spiral force reached 15 meters and rushed toward the black steel bear. Roar! The black steel bear roared and spat out a powerful force from its mouth. The black chi rushed out like the wind and directly met the power of Yang Wu's palms. The 2 different forces collided and competed to see who was stronger. As a result, the black steel bear's power was much more domineering. It wiped out Yang Wu's power and still had the remaining power to attack Yang Wu. Yang Wu's eyes flickered, and his body moved like a ghost. He dodged to the side, and the power lost its target and blasted the trees behind him, turning them into powder. The black steel bear chased after him and roared, "You're dead meat, human." The black steel bear aimed at Yang Wu's position and slapped him with one of its paws. The demon chi condensed into a giant palm, which contained a terrifying power. The surrounding air was pushed aside like ripples in the wind. This palm had at least 70 to 80 cauldrons of strength. Once hit, even a high-level general realm expert would die. "Let me see how much my strength has increased." Yang Wu muttered to himself and bounced forward like a bow. He first drew back his fist and then threw it out. A fist light flashed. Inch punch. The light from the punch was not very long, but the power was extremely concentrated and contained an extremely strong explosive force. Bang! After the 2 forces collided again, the fist and the palm exploded at the same time. The power scattered to the left and right, turning many of the weeds into powder and dust. When the black steel bear saw that the puny human had blocked its power, it roared in dissatisfaction. The bear turned his back to Yang Wu and charged at him. Bareback Mountain. The black steel bear was known for its strength. Its strong body could move mountains and fill seas. Its strength was even more domineering. Yang Wu secretly shouted, "I'll use you to practice my fist and palm." The power in Yang Wu's palms condensed, and he took a lunge. Both of his palms struck out with earth-shattering force. Mountain collapsing palm. Yang Wu had practiced the inch punch and the mountain collapsing palm, but he had only reached the microscopic state. He had not been able to fully exert their power. Now, he wanted to thoroughly use the combat skills of the fist and palm in the battle and reach the proficient or advanced level. When Yang Wu's palm landed on the black steel bear, he felt a strong rebound force, which knocked him back. Again, Yang Wu exclaimed. He turned his palm into a fist and punched at the black steel bear. The black steel bear was completely obsessed with Yang Wu. It kept slapping its powerful bear paws, using its strong body to slam into Yang Wu, and even spitting out powerful demonic energy from its mouth. It could be said that it was using everything it had, determined to tear this human apart alive. However, although this human seemed to be weaker than it, his reaction was like a monkey. He jumped around randomly, which made it unable to attack him at all. It even suffered a lot from him, which really annoyed it. During the battle, Yang Wu repeatedly used the inch punch and the mountain collapsing palm to understand the mystery and enhance the efficiency of his attacks. He had already practiced the stormy spear technique and the wave whirling palm to the perfect stage. His understanding of combat skills was no longer comparable to before. As he repeatedly switched, his fighting became more smooth and natural. His understanding of the two combat skills deepened rapidly. The inch punch mainly focused on the speed of the punch and the craftiness of the attack. It was fine if one did not punch, but once one punched, it would definitely hit the vital points. It would not be sloppy. Moreover, the power of the attack was concentrated, and the lethality of the attack was extremely strong. The mountain collapsing palm gathered the power in the palm and burst it out in an instant. It was the type of combat skill that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Yang Wu used the ability of the dragon turtle water suppression stance to speed up his movements. When he could dodge the black steel bear's attack, he would use the inch punch. When he could not dodge, he would use the mountain collapsing palm. The power of the peach core dantian in his body was constantly supplying him with power. The power of the explosion was getting stronger and stronger. Finally, he was able to perform these two combat skills to the proficient stage. All of this was because his god's spiritual aperture in the god's cord had been opened, so his comprehension and understanding ability were no longer comparable to before. The more the black steel bear fought, the crazier it became. Its power was being consumed, and its wounds were worsening. If this continued, it would definitely fall first. It could not continue fighting like this. It had to end the battle quickly. After the black steel bear roared a few times, the power of the armor on its body suddenly exploded. A powerful force exploded with it as the center. Yang Wu was caught off guard and was sent flying while vomiting blood. Even little He, who was on his shoulder, had fled early. When Yang Wu fell to the ground, the black steel bear slammed its paws heavily on the ground. Two tearing forces were transmitted from the ground to Yang Wu, who had not had time to get up yet. The shock caused him to bounce off the ground again. The black steel bear rushed over like a cannonball and slammed into Yang Wu's body with its shoulder. The impact sent Yang Wu flying dozens of feet away, and the trees around him were broken. The situation looked quite tragic. Little He hid on the other side and looked in Yang Wu's direction. She sighed and said, "So weak." The black steel bear's chain of attacks was really beautiful. It said with incomparable satisfaction, "This time, the human should be dead." The black steel bear was not in a good state. It attacked with all its strength, and the wound from last night burst open again. Its abdomen was bleeding again, and it had used up a lot of energy. It had less than 30% of its strength left. How could Yang Wu, who was sent flying, die so easily? His body had been tempered by the companion wolf blood crystal, so his endurance was naturally better than others. Moreover, he had an immortal body. After this round of attacks, his injuries were not light. However, it also made him realize that even if he had broken through to become a top warrior, there was still a big gap between him and a top demon general. The slightest carelessness could cause him to fall into a situation where he would not be able to survive. Yang Wu circulated the profound qi in his body. The 12 standard meridians and 3 mysterious meridians flowed at a speed many times faster than before. The injuries on his body were instantly healed by half. When he stood up, his injuries were already half healed. This kind of recovery speed was astonishing. "Big guy, you really hurt me." After Yang Wu shouted, he madly ran towards the black steel bear. At this moment, the battle intent in his body was pushed to the extreme. He did not plan to hold back anymore. A different kind of power rose from his body. An indescribable battle intent merged with the death intent in his divine court, forming a power of influence. It was as if he was the incarnation of the battle king, invisibly affecting his opponent's battle intent. After the black steel bear felt it, its fierce bear eyes revealed a bit of fear. It murmured, Could this be the power of a king? How is this possible?" Not far away, Little Hay also revealed a trace of astonishment. She muttered to herself, "This brat gave birth to the power of a king, just like that." The power of a king was a battle intent that could only be produced after reaching the realm of a king. It could increase one's battle confidence and battle strength. Ordinary people would be scared to the point that their legs would go soft when facing the power of a king. This was the legendary feeling of prestige without being angry. Yang Wu was only a small warrior, but he could actually produce the power of a king. This could only mean that he was extraordinarily talented. Once the power of a king was produced before reaching the realm of a king, then they would definitely become a king in the future. Moreover, their achievements would be much more powerful than ordinary kings. Apart from that, there were other wonderful uses. Yang Wu would have to discover all of these by himself. Yang Wu ran faster and faster. As the power flowed, the injuries on his body had completely healed. He was in the same state as before, as if he had never been injured. The black steel bear retreated again and again. In the end, it turned around and fled into its cave. It had already lost the courage to fight. "Brat, that's enough. Stop," Little Hay suddenly said to Yang Wu. At this moment, Yang Wu could not hear Little Hay's words. His power had already reached its peak. If he did not vent it, he would explode. He replied, "I can't stop." Yang Wu struck out with both palms. He did not aim at the black steel bear, but at the mountain where its cave was located. Boom! A terrifying explosion rang out. A large part of the mountain was instantly destroyed, and rocks tumbled down. As soon as the black steel bear returned to its cave, it was buried by a large number of rocks. Clouds of dust filled the air, and the commotion was extremely shocking. Yang Wu stopped and sighed softly. "How can my power be so powerful? I can't even control it." Little Hay quickly rushed over. It used its divine sense to speak. "Brat, you've only just condensed your power of a king. You haven't fully mastered it yet, so it's normal for you to lose control. That big guy is really unlucky. It wants to kill us, so why is it stopping me from killing it?" Yang Wu asked Little Hay. "It's not easy for any living being to cultivate. If there's no enmity between us, why must we fight to the death? We can use virtue to convince others," Little Hay said in a wise tone. Immediately afterward, it ran towards the collapsed cave. Yang Wu could only follow. Soon, they saw the black steel bear push itself out of the cave. It was in an extremely sorry state, but fortunately, there were no fatal injuries. When it saw Yang Wu, it immediately revealed an expression of fear and said, "Human, please let me go." Before Yang Wu could say anything, Little Hay had already replied for Yang Wu. "I can let you go. You could be our mount." Chapter 94. That's a good idea. Yang Wu immediately agreed. Previously, when the Wolf King wanted to become his mount, he did not accept it. It was not that he did not like it, But the Wolf King was too frightening and would attract all kinds of trouble. Now, the Black Steel Bear was a top-level demon general and had not yet reached the Demon King realm. It was not that frightening, but it could intimidate the weak. It was the most suitable mount. Moreover, the barbarians were chasing after him. With the Black Steel Bear around, he could relax a lot. The Black Steel Bear did not dare to resist. It immediately lay down and said, "I'm willing to be your mount." In fact, it had already sensed the incomparable demon chi on Little Hay's body. It was not something it could resist. "Okay, hurry up and move the things out of your nest. Let's leave this place first." Little Hay replied. Yang Wu ignored them and sat down cross-legged to recover the energy he had expended. He wanted to figure out where the so-called king's power that suddenly burst out from his body came from. Yang Wu once again looked inside his body. He found that the mysterious energy essence in his peach core, Dantian, was gradually growing stronger. It seemed that he did not need to deliberately gather his energy. It could still recover automatically, but the speed was slower. In addition, the invisible spiritual flower bud in his divine court seemed to be about to bloom. Once the flower bud fully bloomed, he might reach the stage where Little Hay said divine court lotus. His spiritual power would reach a very powerful realm. Yang Wu circulated the Xian formula. Under the effect of a few large circulations, he recovered to his original state. The energy in the peach core had also increased by a lot. It seemed that it would not be a problem for him to break through the acupoints again. After every battle, the potential of the body is excavated. It seems that only through continuous battles can one's realm rise faster. This might be the path of the War King of Death. What I'm facing now is just child's play, Yang Wu thought to himself. Ever since he joined the Death Legion, he had gone through a few battles, but he was still far from the sense of urgency of death. He still needed more intense battles. Half an hour later, the Black Steel Bear carried out all the treasures in its cave. There weren't many treasures left, but there were some items that weren't bad, especially that stalk of black Ganoderma. It looked to be quite old and belonged to a low-grade spirit medicine. It could prolong one's life and could also help increase one's profound energy. Little Hay, on the other hand, kept all of these items away, not giving Yang Wu any chance to snatch them away. Little Hay, as a human, no, as a dog, you have to be kind. Since you've taken so many things from this big guy, you should at least give me some. Give me that black Ganoderma, Yang Wu said to Little Hay while rubbing his hands. It would be a waste to give it to you. Little Hay replied bluntly. How is it a waste? I'm still waiting to increase my strength as soon as possible. Yang Wu replied in dissatisfaction. I plan to refine this medicine into a pill. Little Hay said again. Refine pills? Little Hay, you even know how to refine pills? Yang Wu said with a surprised expression. This immortal emperor is omnipotent. Little Hay said with its head held high. Then it said, all right, let's hurry up and leave. The fight just now has already attracted your enemies over. The big guy is still injured, so it's not good for him to continue fighting. After Yang Wu heard Little Hay's words, he calmed his heart and sensed for a moment. He immediately discovered that there was indeed movement 5 kilometers away. He revealed a longing expression and said, Why are we leaving? We didn't have enough fun fighting just now. It's just right for us to fight another round now. Your courage is commendable. Then we'll leave first. After Little Hay praised him, he shamelessly climbed onto the Black Steel Bear's shoulder and called for it to leave together. Yang Wu was quite angry at Little Hay. He angrily said, Little Hay, I've seen through you. I don't want to stay behind and die with you. Little Hay lazily replied. Blackie replied lazily. After a pause, it added, There's a king in their camp. Damn, why didn't you say so earlier? Yang Wu let out a strange cry and hurriedly caught up to Little Hay and the Black Steel Bear. He jumped onto the Black Steel Bear's back and enjoyed the feeling of being a mount. The Black Steel Bear ran very quickly. In just a few blinks of an eye, it was already more than 1,000 feet away. Although this big guy isn't the best mount, it's still passable, Yang Wu thought to himself. In his heart, the most ideal mount was the mighty tiger mount, lion mount, wolf mount, or the soaring eagle mount, crane mount, and so on. The black steel bear didn't look too good. Big guy, do you know where the pool is? Yang Wu asked the black steel bear. He remembered Sun Rui's words. Meet the water and transform into a dragon. He might not be able to transform into a dragon, but he could use the dragon turtle water suppression stance to increase his strength again. I know, master. However, there's a powerful existence in the pool. It might be a demon king. I don't dare to go near it, the black steel bear replied. There's a demon king? Little Hay, can you handle it? Yang Wu sighed softly, then looked at Little Hay and asked. Little Hay pondered for a moment and said, It's not advisable for you to come into contact with beings of that level now. Although they aren't much, they will give you quite a bit of pressure. Just find a place with a water source and dry up. The black steel bear nodded and led them in a certain direction. 5 kilometers away, Huangfu Taiging, Shi Shafeng, and Huangfu Mingyu were riding on the giant tusk elephant and rushing over quickly. At this moment, the barbarian generals beside them had been arranged to split up and search for people. There were less than 10 riders left with them. When did my clan's Langer become so weak? He can't even catch 2 great Xia commoners, Shi Shafeng said with dissatisfaction. All these years, the great Xia has been training their people in order to produce another battle king of death. In recent years, a rose of death has indeed appeared. Their physique is not as good as my clan's, but their talent is not inferior to ours. Therefore, my clan's Langer also needs more training. Don't think that you're invincible among your peers just because of your brute strength, Huangfu Taiging said. 8th grandfather, let me train too. Huangfu Mingyu said coquettishly. This place is too close to the great Xia's territory. I can't let you take this risk, Huangfu Taiging said with a smile. Huangfu Mingyu glanced at Shouho who was tied up behind them and asked Huangfu Taiging, 8th grandfather, now that you can confirm that elder sister is in the great Xia, why don't you just kill this commoner? Why are you bringing him along? Shouho was not dead yet, but he was in a worse state than death. He was in a state where he would rather be dead than dead. This was because the memories in his mind had been forcibly taken away by Huangfu Taiging last night, injuring his shinting. If he didn't have a top-notch elixir, he would be completely crippled. This brat is just a small hostage. It won't be easy to kill him. However, he has an extraordinary relationship with Princess Mingzhu. He might be of some use if we keep him alive, Huangfu Taiging replied. Then what should we do next to bring the princess back? Shi Shafeng asked. What we need now is an opportunity. No matter what, we have to capture that commoner of the great Xia who is related to Princess Mingzhu. I will control them as puppets and let them bring the princess out. When the time comes, we will provide support. This is a foolproof plan. Huangfu Taiging's old eyes flickered as he spoke. Then we will continue to pursue him. If my clan's Langer still hasn't captured him by today, I will make a move to avoid unnecessary trouble, Shi Shafeng said. Huangfu Taiging nodded slightly and replied softly, Okay. After pausing for a moment, he glanced in a direction and shouted, Come out, you scoundrel hiding in the shadows. Immediately after, he pointed his finger in a direction. A golden ray of light from his finger streaked across a distance of hundreds of feet and landed on a rock. It directly pierced through the rock, and a figure hidden behind the rock rushed out. This figure did not immediately escape. Instead, she leaped into the air, and a pair of black Xian wings spread open. Black Xian Qi flickered, appearing extremely dazzling. This person was wrapped in tight-fitting black clothes, and her curvaceous figure was clearly displayed. Her face was covered with a veil, and her appearance could not be seen clearly. Only a pair of extremely cold eyes could be seen. Xian Qi transformed into wings. This was a female monarch. After seeing this female monarch, Shi Shafeng's expression became tense. He shouted, Protect Princess Mingyu and retreat. I will deal with her. General Shi, can't you take her down? Huangfu Mingyu asked. Naturally, I can take her down. However, I will alarm the great Xia's monarchs. When that happens, there will be some trouble, Shi Shafeng said. Huangfu Taiging made a prompt decision and said, Mingyu, follow me. The strongest person here was not Shi Shafeng, but Huangfu Taiging. However, he would not attack again. His mission was to find the person and protect Huangfu Mingyu. Huangfu Mingyu was somewhat unwilling. She still wanted to see the intense battle between monarchs. "None of you will be able to leave," the black-clothed female monarch said coldly. A strange black broadsword appeared in her hand, and she slashed towards the barbarians. Wherever the domineering broadsword passed, weeds would wither, and trees would wither. This broadsword contained an extremely terrifying will of death. Shi Shafeng frowned and reprimanded. "So, it's the Rose of Death. Let me see if you have the means of the Battle Monarch of Death." Shi Shafeng formed a seal with both hands, and a yellow palm struck towards the broadsword. During the process of impact, the palm rapidly transformed into a terrifying python, clashing with the black broadsword. Instantly, there was an explosion in all directions. Boom! Billowing waves of air swept out in all directions. Within a radius of 1 mile, the trees collapsed, sand and stones flew, and dust billowed. This was the destructive power caused by a battle between monarchs. The Rose of Death's attack was blocked, but she did not stop there. She flashed her profound wings, and her target was Huangfu Mingyu. However, as one of the top 10 monarchs of the barbarian race, Shi Shafeng's cultivation level was above the Rose of Death. A pair of yellow, profound wings spread out from his body, and he blocked the Rose of Death in advance like a goshawk. Both of his palms carried a domineering force as they repeatedly smashed towards the Rose of Death. The Rose of Death's eyes were ruthless. She raised her broadsword and faced the attacks head-on. The two monarchs fought fiercely in midair, causing a huge commotion. Chapter 95. In the forest, a black steel bear was running quickly. A handsome and resolute young man was sitting on its back, and a little hay dog was lying on the young man's shoulder. This combination was quite strange. A battle between sovereign personages. "What a big commotion," Little Hay said while lying on Yang Wu's shoulder, looking in a certain direction, transforming Xianqi into wings and fighting in the air. "How amazing!" Yang Wu's eyes could also vaguely see the situation in the distance, and he revealed an extremely envious expression. The realms of warriors were divided into soldier, and general. These were the realms of ordinary warriors. Those who could reach the general realm were all at the master level. In the secular world, they were considered experts. However, those who surpassed the general realm were called kings. In reality, the realms were called Earth-Sea realms. To reach this realm, one had to transform the energy in their dantian into an ocean and transform it into a higher level of Xianqi. They could then condense Xian wings and use the Xian wings to fly high in the sky. This was a realm that all warriors dreamed of. In the secular world, there were not many who had reached this realm. Only the great forces of the country would have more king-level experts. Yang Wu was just an insignificant warrior. He was not far from the general realm, but there was still a great distance between him and the Earth-Sea realm. Don't underestimate him. There was only the general realm between the two realms. Many warriors were stuck in the general realm and could never break through to the king realm. Yang Wu was still a young man. He had been wronged. He knew very well that if he could one day fly in the sky like the kings in battle, then he would be able to wash away the injustice on his body. He might even be conferred the title of Marquis and restore the glory of the Yang clan. So what if you were a king-level expert? As long as you listen to this immortal emperor, you will be able to look down on this world and become the #1 god of war. Little Hay said with a grand tone. #1 god of war? This dream seemed a little far away. Yang Wu looked up and sighed. You are so useless, Little Hay said with disdain. Hee, I'll think about this when I become a king. Yang Wu didn't dare to think too far ahead, so he replied with a faint smile. Very quickly, they arrived at a place with a stream in the forest, and the battle between the two great human kings was already unable to affect this side. There was a group of wolf demons resting here. When they saw the black steel bear, they surrounded it one after another. Their eyes were filled with a strong sense of hunting. The black steel bear kept roaring, using its powerful demonic aura to intimidate the wolf demons. Unfortunately, no matter how it barked, It couldn't compare to little Hay's gentle barks. When the wolf demons heard this voice, it was as if they had heard the command of their king. They quickly disappeared from the vicinity like a tide. This area was surrounded by green hills and clear waters. It was quite quiet and secluded. Yang Wu and his group stopped here to rest. Little Hay, didn't you say that you wanted to refine the black Ganoderma into a pill? Let's start now. Yang Wu said impatiently. Legendary alchemists were all extremely respected figures. Yang Wu also wanted to see how Little Hay refined pills. What's the rush? We still have to find some other medicinal herbs to complement it. You cultivate here, I'll go look for some herbs. Little Hay said, and directly left Yang Wu to search for herbs. Yang Wu said to the black steel bear, Big guy, quickly heal your injuries and guard me while you're at it. I'm going to cultivate. Then, he ignored the black steel bear and walked toward the stream. After drinking a few mouthfuls of spring water, he stepped into the spring and stood up with the dragon turtle suppressing water stance. Now, he had to cultivate every second. He didn't think that he could relax just because he was out of danger. A king among the barbarians had made a move, so there would definitely be other barbarians coming for revenge. When Yang Wu entered a meditative state, the water of the stream surged toward him crazily. Wisps of water began to seep into his body, strengthening the power of his dantian. The pleasure of rapid improvement made him feel extremely comfortable. The power of all 209 acupoints in his body was replenished. Then, 3 more acupoints were broken through by the new mystical chi. A total of 212 acupoints were opened. Yang Wu wanted to use this opportunity to increase his strength and combat strength. However, he didn't enjoy it for long before he sensed something crashing down from the sky. Bang! The sound of the crash was very loud, and the spot where it hit was the stream. A lot of stream water splashed all over Yang Wu's body. He opened his eyes, which were filled with anger. It wasn't easy for him to enter a state of cultivation, but it was interrupted just like that. No one would be able to accept it. As for the black steel bear nearby, it was also shocked. It hurriedly ran over with a ferocious expression and glared at the uninvited guest. When Yang Wu saw what had fallen, he was completely dumbfounded. It was not a thing, but a living person. Moreover, it was a woman with an excellent figure. She was lying in the stream, and a lot of the stream water soaked her clothes. There was blood coming out of her mouth, and it was obvious that she was injured and had fainted. Yang Wu didn't even think about it. He walked over, picked up the woman, and put her down on the shore. This woman was dressed in tight black clothes and had a perfect curvy figure. One could vaguely see her snow-white skin through her torn clothes, and anyone who saw her would feel their blood boil. Looking at her exquisite face that was not covered by anything, her black hair falling down like a waterfall, she was as seductive as a sleeping beauty. Yang Wu immediately felt his mouth and tongue go dry. A wave of fire rose from his body, and his lower abdomen immediately felt uncomfortable. Amitabha, don't look at indecent things. After Yang Wu chanted a Buddhist chant, he turned his face away and extended his hand to check the woman's chi. The chi was still there, but it was very weak and messy. Without saying a word, Yang Wu took out a healing pill and fed it to the woman. At this moment, the woman suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were filled with shock, scaring Yang Wu so much that his hand trembled and the pill fell to the ground. Yang Wu's willpower was not something an ordinary person could compare to, but this woman's gaze was too terrifying, as if it could pierce through his heart, causing him to feel suffocated and uncomfortable. Fortunately, the moment the woman opened her eyes, her gaze dimmed down, and she no longer had the threat she had before. Don't misunderstand, I just want to save you. Yang Wu looked at the woman and said sincerely. The woman looked at Yang Wu, slightly blinked her eyes, and then closed them again. It was unknown whether it was because her injuries were too severe or because she couldn't speak. Yang Wu tried to say, I'll feed you the pill. Open your mouth. The woman hesitated for a moment and cooperatively opened her mouth slightly. Yang Wu then carefully placed the pill on the woman's jade lips. His finger couldn't help but slightly brush the woman's jade lips, causing the woman's eyelashes to tremble extremely violently. After Yang Wu finished, he said, I can only help you this much. Whether or not you can recover depends on you. After saying this, Yang Wu stood guard at the side, very gentlemanly, not looking at indecent things, but his eyes were a little erratic, and his heart was constantly madly chanting, Ba, Ba, a demoness fell from the sky who can eat people. I'm afraid this demoness will eat me. Ba. This woman was not much older than Wan Lanxin, but she was more beautiful than Wan Lanxin, and her body was much more developed than Wan Lanxin's. It could be said that whether it was appearance or body, the woman in front of him was more outstanding than Wan Lanxin. Of course, in Yang Wu's eyes, the biggest difference between the two of them was not the difference in appearance, but the difference in temperament. This kind of temperament made Yang Wu not know how to describe it. It was like comparing a woman who was already perfect with a young girl who had not yet grown up. The difference between the two could not be closed. What made Yang Wu feel strange was that this kind of woman made him feel an inexplicable sense of closeness, as if there was an aura of the same origin that made it difficult for him to control himself. Just as Yang Wu thought that feeding the woman a healing pill would save her, he discovered that she was writhing in pain on the spot, and she could not help but groan in pain. Yang Wu was shocked, and he was about to approach again, but Little Hay suddenly rushed back, released her divine sense, and exclaimed, Don't go near that woman. This time, Yang Wu immediately stopped. Little Hay came to Yang Wu's side, looked at the woman, and said, This woman's consciousness of death has erupted, and with your current strength, if you go near her, you will be affected by the consciousness of death, and you will be injured. The power she explodes with can even kill you. She's that terrifying? Yang Wu was tongue-tied. She's one of the human kings who fought not long ago, Little Hay said. Such a young human king. She's really too powerful. Yang Wu exclaimed with a hint of reverence. Then he asked, Can she still be saved? If she can survive, not only can she be saved, but her strength will also increase greatly. However, she's currently heavily injured, and even if you feed her a normal healing pill, it won't have much effect on her. Thus, the hope is very slim, Little Hay replied. Then she really can't be saved? Yang Wu said with a hint of pity. In front of me, even the dead can be revived, let alone someone who hasn't died yet, Little Hay said proudly. Then Little Hay, please save her. Why should I beg her? Yang Wu was indeed speechless. Why should Little Hay save a stranger? Moreover, it was not easy to be a good person these days. If you want to save her, it's not impossible, Little Hay said, keeping him in suspense. Then what should I do? Yang Wu asked. Help her share the power of the brand of death. However, if you do that, you might not be able to endure it. At that time, you'll be the one to die, Little Hay replied. Blackie replied. He paused for a moment before he added, Of course, if you're able to endure the brand of death, then perhaps it'll be quite beneficial to you. Yang Wu hesitated for a moment, then glanced at the woman who was in pain. He steeled his heart and said, Since she's fallen in front of me, I can't just stand by and watch her die. I'll share the power of the brand of death for her. Brat, if you want to be a hero saving a damsel in distress, then just say it. Why do you have to make it sound so dignified? Little Hay, how can you doubt my bodhisattva's heart of saving the dying and helping the injured? Chapter 96. Sharing the burden of the brand of death was a very dangerous thing to do. The slightest carelessness could cause one to fall into an irrecoverable situation. Ordinary people would not want to take such a risk to save another person, but Yang Wu was actually willing to do so. Was he out his mind? In fact, that was not the case. Yang Wu had an immortal body. He could easily dissolve the brand of death left behind by the Death War King. He was not like Su Xiaoqiang, who had the brand of death imprinted in his body. If he could not control it, he might explode. It was because of this that Yang Wu wanted to give it a try. Just as Little Hay said, he had the heart of a hero saving a beauty. With such a beauty in front of him, if he watched her die, his conscience would not be at ease. However, it was not easy to share the burden of the brand of death just because he wanted to. He also needed to share the burden of the brand of death with someone else. After Little Hay told Yang Wu how to share the burden of the brand of death with a woman, she left with the black steel bear. leaving the place to Yang-Wu. She even gave Yang-Wu an ambiguous look, as if hinting that Yang-Wu was going to do something between a man and a woman. Yang-Wu pretended not to understand, but he cursed in his heart. What a perverted little dog. I'm a true gentleman. Why would I take advantage of her? He looked at the woman who was still in pain. He thought about tearing her clothes to transfer the brand of death. He could not help but gulp. Then he put his palms together and murmured, Amit-ba. A female demon who can eat people fell from the sky. I'm afraid she will eat me. Amit-ba. Then he sat down cross-legged and thought about the method that little Hay had just taught him. First, he would use the consciousness of the divine court to force out his own brand of death. Then, he would use the power of the same origin to sense the other party's brand of death. This might cause the other party's power to explode. Only then could he share the burden of the other party's brand of death. Come on. Yang-Wu took a deep breath and activated his brand of death. After the battle with the barbarian generals last night, he knew that the brand of death was in his divine court. It was also an invisible existence. However, after he opened his meridians, he could sense it clearly. As long as he wanted to, he could activate it at any time. After activating his brand of death, he used his consciousness to envelop the woman and the woman's body. Originally, the woman had been using her willpower and strength to suppress the brand of death that was growing stronger. However, under Yang-Wu's influence, she was finally unable to bear it any longer. The brand of death completely erupted, and the terrifying aura of a human king was released. The powerful energy instantly turned her tight black clothes to dust, and a perfect and flawless body was presented before him without any reservation. The large blood red rose embroidered on her shoulder that took up half of her body was incomparably dazzling. Yang-Wu took in this scene as much as he could, but he didn't have any bad thoughts. He only felt a chill because he could be directly crushed by this king's aura. Rise! Yang-Wu shouted. He activated all the power in his body. A cicada robe quietly covered his body. The thickness of this cicada robe was no less than an ordinary general realm profound armor. It was even thicker than a layer of profound armor. As Yang-Wu's realm increased, his defensive power naturally increased as well. However, he was still unable to form a profound armor, not because he didn't have enough strength, but because in order to form a profound armor, he had to open 365 acupoints. Even if Yang-Wu's foundation was strong, he still couldn't break through this limit. The fact that he could forcefully condense the strong cicada robe was already not something that other warriors could compare to. Unfortunately, the king's aura was too terrifying. It directly swept him away from where he stood. Not only that, but the power of the brand of death also spread in all directions. The surrounding trees withered rapidly. Many weeds died on the spot. The black power was like a scythe of death. It was unstoppable. Little Hay, who was watching from afar, saw this scene and exclaimed, "This little girl has actually compressed the force of death to such a degree. It looks like she's planning something big. Not only does she want to control the will of death, but she also wants to form the flower of death into a higher realm. She's really bold. It's a pity that time waits for no one. I wonder if that kid can handle it." Next, Lil Hay leapt off the black steel bear. It seemed like it was flying, reaching a height of several dozen meters. When it reached a certain height, it spat out low-grade, profound spirit stones, which fell around Yang-Wu and the woman. At the same time, Little Hay's front claws continuously drew out strands of mysterious power, attacking the low-grade, profound spirit stones in the surroundings. Before these profound spirit stones could even land on the ground, they were gathered together by Little Hay's power, forming a net of energy. In the end, it fell around Yang-Wu and the woman, forcefully sealing off the king's aura that the woman had released. It did not allow the power to spread outwards. At the same time, it did not cause any other disturbances, causing the area to fall silent once more. Little Hay landed on the black steel bear's back once more. It seemed to have shrunk quite a bit as it murmured, "I'm too weak right now. I have to wait for that kid to grow up. Only then will my sealing power slowly fade away. It looks like I have to hurry up and let the kid grow up." The area where Yang Wu and the woman were had been sealed off by Little Haze Formation. The woman's brand of death had completely filled the area. If it could not be contained, the two of them would die. Yang Wu was forced to the edge of the formation by the power. It was like he had slammed into a wall, stuck at the edge of the formation. The thick robes on him had been ripped apart by the power, unable to defend against it at all. After losing the robes, he felt suffocated and uncomfortable. His body was squeezed to the point where blood seeped out. This was the might of a king's aura. Coupled with the power of the brand of death, even a general realm cultivator would not be able to withstand it. I don't believe that I can't withstand the power of a king's aura. Yang Wu gritted his teeth and let out a bellow. He mobilized all of his powers, and the battle blood in his body seethed. The will of death in his divine court was activated, completely resisting the power of a king's aura released by the woman. The combination of Yang Wu's battle will and the will of death also produced an indescribable aura. However, it still appeared to be too insignificant. Furthermore, the will of death came from the same source as the woman's brand of death. Finally, it absorbed the power of the brand of death on the woman's body and attacked him. The brand of death was actually the will of death corroding one's vitality. If it could not be controlled, it would threaten one's life. It would slowly devour one's life and accelerate one's death. If one could control it and turn it into their martial will, they would be able to unleash the profoundness of the way of death and achieve astonishing battle results. Yang Wu had withstood the feeling of the brand of death when he was at the battle skill steel of the King of Death. At that time, his peach core Dantian had directly dissolved the power of death and integrated the will into his divine court. It did not cause any harm to him. At this moment, these more powerful brand of death seeped into his body and began to wreak havoc on his vitality, causing him even more pain and discomfort. Absorb it. Yang Wu threw caution to the wind. After he let out a roar, he quickly circulated the supreme 9 mysteries formula. His peach core, Dantian, absorbed the power of the brand of death into his body. It was instantly purified and fed back to his divine court, strengthening his will of death. When Yang Wu released the suction force, the power of the brand of death, which came from the same source, used him as a vent and gushed toward him rapidly. A lot of power gushed into Yang Wu's body. If it had been an ordinary person, they would have exploded from the overwhelming power. However, the space in Yang Wu's peach core Dantian was like a bottomless pit. It could absorb as much power as there was. Moreover, the speed at which the power was purified grew increasingly faster. Yang Wu's will of death was also increasing incessantly. If it was said that it was only the size of a little finger at the beginning, then it had now accumulated to the size of half a fist. In addition, the acupoints in Yang Wu's body had been forcibly broken through by 21 acupoints. In an instant, he had opened up 233 acupoints, saving him several days of cultivation. All of this did not stop. As Yang Wu shared a portion of the brand of death, the woman, who had been in unbearable pain, gradually relaxed. She sat cross-legged on the ground and forcibly circulated a battle art, wanting to suppress all the other brand of death. This was the foundation of her cultivation. Once she lost it, she would no longer have the will of death. This was the result she did not want. She wanted to use the brand of death to form the flower of Tao and completely grasp the way of death. However, all of this was no longer based on her will. Instead, the power of the brand of death had found a better place to reside. All of it surged toward Yang Wu. It was as if Yang Wu's will of death was the purest source. They were like swallows returning to their nest, no longer lingering on the woman's body. The woman woke up. First, she withdrew the ruler's force that she had released. She wanted to forcefully retain and suppress the brand of death that she had worked so hard to gather over the past few years. But it was useless. She opened her eyes, and her cold gaze fell upon Yang Wu. Then, she looked at her naked body, and her murderous intent surged. However, she discovered that there was a formation around her, which made her realize that the situation was not as simple as she had imagined. Then, a set of clothes suddenly appeared in her hand, which quickly wrapped up her graceful body tightly. Not a single bit of her body was exposed. Since you can absorb my brand of death, I might as well give it all to you." The woman's expression turned cold. After thinking this, she stopped suppressing the power of the brand of death and allowed it to be absorbed by Yang Wu. Yang Wu had unknowingly obtained this powerful brand of death. The will of death in his god's palace condensed above his god's spiritual aperture, forming a black flower bud. The Flower of Tao. Chapter 97. The Flower of Tao. This was definitely a sign that a martial will had been completely formed. Only in this way would a martial will be able to mature and unleash its strongest prowess. The flower bud that Yang Wu had formed had yet to reach maturity. It had not truly bloomed, let alone had a result. However, to a warrior like him, it was unique. Generally speaking, only after the spirit acupoints had completely gained intelligence would they be able to form a lotus in the divine court. Only then would they be able to form the flower of Tao. However, Yang Wu had formed the flower of Tao first, standing side by side with the divine court flower bud. Perhaps there would be a day when it would bloom before the divine court flower bud. When forming the flower of death, Yang Wu's divine court flower bud also received some benefits. His mental strength had increased by quite a bit once more. Apart from this, he had opened a total of 284 acupoints, 51 more than the 233 he had opened at the start. If he had been sharing the power of the brand of death from the very beginning, he would have opened a total of 72 acupoints. He was not too far away from the 365 acupoints. Furthermore, he had opened another of his 8 extraordinary meridians. This was the 4th meridian, the girdle meridian. If the unblocking meridian was the meridians that connected the entire body from top to bottom, then the girdle meridian was the waist meridian that circled the waist from left to right. It formed a cross with the unblocking meridian, converging the power of all the meridians and acupoints in the body, allowing him to unleash every bit of potential in his body to a greater extent. The benefit of opening the 8 extraordinary meridians was to unlock the best potential of the body. For example, it was like a battle skill. Ordinary warriors could only unleash the strength of the subtle stage, while those with a bit of talent could reach the proficient stage. Geniuses could reach the great perfection stage, while true peerless geniuses could reach the perfect stage. In other words, Yang Wu had opened 4 extraordinary meridians, allowing him to unleash the full potential of his body. If he could open the other 4 meridians as well, he would reach the perfect stage. The battle prowess he could unleash would definitely be unimaginable. This was the result of people with natural martial bodies. They were born with the 12 standard meridians and 8 extraordinary meridians. Their battle prowess at the same level was incomparable to ordinary people. This was the excavation of the potential of the martial body, and Yang Wu was unknowingly walking down this path. This was also the physique that Little Hay had mentioned that some martial arts geniuses had to possess. Yang Wu didn't know how long he had been sitting cross-legged, from the initial pain to the gradual increase in strength. He was in a state of confusion. It wasn't until everything stopped that he woke up. He did not open his eyes. Instead, he used his inner vision to observe all the changes in his body. It really gave him a fright. He had just broken through to the top-level warrior realm in the morning, and then went to find trouble with the black steel bear. It should have only been a day, but his strength had soared so much that it really scared him. In addition, he also saw that the belt meridian around his waist had been opened, as well as the death flower bud in the divine court. All of these made him go wild with joy. It's a blessing in disguise. Yang Wu opened his eyes and said proudly. It was also at this moment that a cold and beautiful face quietly appeared in front of him, causing him to immediately shiver. He leaned back and said, "Are you all right?" The cold and beautiful woman in front of him was a true human king. He still remembered that he had accidentally seen her naked body. If she said that she wasn't angry, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. The cold and beautiful woman stared at Yang Wu without blinking. She didn't say anything, causing Yang Wu to feel a little scared. "Big sister, don't look at me like that. I'll be shy." Yang Wu weakly replied. His face really did turn red. The cold and beautiful woman's clothes were not completely wrapped, and a deep cleavage was faintly visible in front of her chest. Yang Wu already had extraordinary willpower not to have a nosebleed on the spot. Kill yourself. The cold and beautiful woman finally opened her mouth to speak. As soon as these words were spoken, she directly sentenced Yang Wu to death. This time, Yang Wu couldn't take it anymore. Even if he wasn't as strong as the other party, he didn't want to be sentenced to death by a single sentence. He stood up and shouted at the woman, "What do you mean? Don't you know that your life was saved by me? Do you think that just because you're a little prettier and a little stronger, you can make me submit to your lecherous might? That's absolutely impossible." After saying this, he directly turned around to leave. In the end, he found that he had directly crashed into the formation barrier that Little Hay had set up. He couldn't take even half a step out of this formation. He thought that it was set up by the woman and punched this formation barrier with all his strength. However, it was completely useless. Yang Wu angrily turned around and glared at the woman, shouting, "Let me go quickly, or I'll shout that you're being molested." There were many shameless people, but there was no one who was as shameless as Yang Wu to the point of being righteous. Shouting that he was being molested in front of such a beautiful woman, only someone would believe him. "Take your own life," the woman once again said coldly. Yang Wu was certain that the other party really didn't want to let him go. He steeled his heart and shouted angrily, "You're biting the hand that feeds you. Do you even have a conscience? It's precisely because you saved me that I'm giving you a chance to take your own life," the woman said very domineeringly. Her voice was very cold, and it directly chilled Yang Wu to the bone. Yang Wu didn't want to die. He circulated all the strength in his body and got into a stance. He faced the woman and said, "Come, even if I die, I want to die with some dignity. I definitely won't just sit there and wait to be captured." The woman frowned slightly, and then she made her move as fast as lightning. Yang Wu couldn't even see how the woman made her move. He found that his collar had been grabbed by the other party's jade-like hand. A powerful force bound his body, causing him to be unable to move. He was lifted up like a little chick. "It's over." Yang Wu couldn't move, and he cried out involuntarily in his heart. Just when he thought that he was going to be killed by the woman, he discovered that the woman didn't do so. Instead, a pair of profound wings spread out from her body, and an unparalleled aura of a ruler was released. Yang Wu could clearly feel it. In the next moment, the woman waved her hand, and a black palm of wind shot out. It easily broke the formation that Little Hay had set up, and then she flew away with Yang Wu in tow. In the distance, Little Hay and the black steel bear saw this scene clearly. The black steel bear trembled and said, "This human king is so domineering. Chase after them." Little Hay ordered the black steel bear. The black steel bear didn't dare to go against Little Hay's orders, and it hurriedly ran on the ground. Little Hay raised her head and looked at the two people who had already flown into the distance. Her eyes shone brightly as she thought to herself, "Brat, since you're this immortal emperor's fated person, you're definitely not a short-lived species. Hold on well." The woman didn't fly for too long with Yang Wu, but they were already far away from where they had been just a moment ago. This was the first time Yang Wu had experienced the feeling of flying in the sky, and he didn't feel too good. Any cultivator who could fly in the sky would feel a sense of glory and excitement. However, Yang Wu's life was in the hands of this woman, and he was very afraid that she would throw him down like this and smash him to pieces. He didn't dare to imagine how terrifying and disgusting such a death would be. Thus, he cursed at the woman, "Evil woman with the heart of a snake and scorpion, you'll die a horrible death. Put me down, you bitch. If you have the ability, let's fight on the bed for 300 rounds and see who's stronger. If you treat your benefactor like this, your children won't have assholes." Yang Wu was about to die, so he could say anything he wanted. He didn't care if the other party was a mortal king or not. He was just going to enjoy himself before he died, and he was going to take some interest. "Little Hay, where are you? Hurry up and come save me." At this moment, Yang Wu suddenly thought of Little Hay, and he couldn't help but shout. Unfortunately, Little Hay couldn't make it in time to save him. This woman was like a cold and emotionless animal. She was completely indifferent to Yang Wu's curses. When she arrived in the air above a dense forest, she lowered her body slightly and directly threw Yang Wu into the dense forest. "Ah, you evil woman, you killed your own husband. You'll die a horrible death. One day, I'll become a ghost and come back to take your life." Yang Wu roared in despair. He had already closed his eyes and waited for death. However, when he fell into the dense forest, his body smashed into the dense tree branches. The force of his fall was cushioned, and he instantly opened his eyes. He frantically grabbed left and right, hoping that he would be able to grab onto a life-saving branch so that he wouldn't really fall to his death. Due to the dense forest, he grabbed many branches in a row. However, his falling speed was too fast, and the force of his descent was too heavy. These branches were all torn apart by the force of his fall, and there was no way for him to stop his fall. Fortunately, after this round of obstruction, his downward momentum was alleviated, and he finally grabbed onto something soft. His downward momentum finally came to a complete stop. Just as he was still in shock, he suddenly saw that the thing he had grabbed onto was the body of a snake coiled around a tree. The snake was also in a state of shock. It thought that an enemy had descended from the sky, and it was so frightened that it opened its mouth wide and shrunk its body. When it saw that it was a human who had grabbed onto its body, its snake eyes emitted a thick aura of hostility. Its fangs bared, and it was about to pounce and bite Yang Wu. "Holy shit!" Yang Wu exclaimed and immediately let go of his hand, and his body fell again. Fortunately, he was only 200 feet above the ground, which was already within the range of his control. But what was worse was that this python was actually chasing after him, circling from above. Its speed was astonishingly fast, only half a beat slower than Yang Wu's falling momentum. When Yang Wu landed on the ground, his feet stomped on the ground, creating 2 deep pits. His clothes were torn by the branches, and there were scratches all over his body. Fortunately, his body was strong enough and didn't bleed. Before he could recover his senses, he found that the snake had appeared above his head again. He angrily shouted, "It's fine if I'm bullied by that bitch, but even you want to bully me? Get out of here." After saying that, a 1-inch punch that contained a powerful force was thrown out. Bang! Chapter 98. Yang Wu had used all of his strength in this punch, and didn't show any mercy at all. A powerful fist force directly landed on the mouth of the snake, breaking its fangs and causing its mouth to burst open. The head of the snake exploded on the spot, and its body fell to the ground. Yang Wu grabbed it with one hand and ruthlessly threw it to the ground. He said hatefully, "This Viscount almost fell to his death, and you still came to add insult to injury. If you're not courting death, what are you doing?" Immediately after, Yang Wu sat on the ground and took deep breaths to regain his senses. He was really scared out of his wits when he encountered danger again and again. After adjusting his chi for a week or two, he sensed that there was a situation nearby. He spread out his divine sense and discovered that there were people rushing over from not far away. "There are 30 barbarian riders coming over." Yang Wu muttered to himself and wanted to hide. He hesitated for a moment and thought, "They've come the right time. I'll use them to train my hand." Yang Wu's realm had increased too quickly, and he needed to train and stabilize it. The 30 barbarians in front of him were his opportunity. At the same time, he also wanted to vent the anger in his heart. He was almost killed by a woman, and this anger was really unbearable. "Don't let me see you again in the future. Otherwise, this Viscount will definitely take you in as my personal maid. You'll warm my bed every day and order me around every day," Yang Wu said as he tore the snake in half. He took out the snake's gallbladder and threw it into his mouth without caring whether it tasted fishy or not. Yang Wu had seen Li Dazue eat raw human flesh. What was a snake's gallbladder to him? At this moment, more than 30 barbarian riders finally appeared not far away from Yang Wu and saw him swallow the snake's gallbladder. There's actually a lowly citizen of the Great Xia in our territory. Who's going to take him down? The leader of the 30 barbarian riders said in surprise. This group of people wasn't very strong. Other than the leader who had reached the barbarian general realm, there were only 3 other barbarian generals. The rest were all barbarian soldiers. Each of them was riding on a different level of Fergana horse and seemed to be patrolling. The Fergana horse was a type of precious horse that was produced in the barbarian territory. Its horsepower was amazing and could travel thousands of miles in a day. It ran like the wind. Only this type of horse could withstand the strong and tall bodies of the barbarians. A young barbarian carrying a steel spear stepped out and said, "The leader asked me to pick him. I'm OG. You've already touched the edge of the advanced warrior realm. You need a battle to help you take him down." The leader of the barbarians nodded and said, "I am OG. I am OG of the barbarian riders. Yang Wu Yang. I am OG, do your best. This great Xia commoner should only be a small martial soldier. Don't let him defeat you," a barbarian shouted. "The great Xia Empire's untouchables are very strong. Don't kill them too quickly. Let's watch a good show first," another barbarian said. They acted as if they were watching a good show and didn't put Yang Wu in their eyes at all. They felt that this young man shouldn't be a threat. MOG's hot blood rushed to his head. He spun the steel spear in his hand and shouted, "Everyone, don't worry. I will let him know the passion of us barbarians." IMOG rode his Fergana horse and quickly arrived in front of Yang Wu. His steel spear stabbed viciously at Yang Wu's chest. That sharp spear light was like a snake coming out of its hole, extremely ferocious. It was as if Yang Wu didn't feel any danger. Facing this attack, he didn't immediately dodge out of fear. Only when the spearhead was about to pierce his heart did he move sideways. IMOG thought that he had stabbed him, but when he realized that he had stabbed nothing, he saw that his opponent had unknowingly appeared on the other side of him. Before he could figure out how his opponent had dodged, his opponent had already counterattacked. Mounting collapsing palm, Yang Wu got into a horse stance, and his palm struck out at lightning speed, directly hitting the area below the horse's neck. He didn't aim at IMOG. Bang! After the strong Fergana horse was slapped by Yang Wu, the horse's neck instantly exploded. The horse's flesh was mangled, and the horse's body bounced to the side. IMOG, who was sitting on it, did not have time to jump off the horse. He was slammed by the horse's body into a tree not far away, causing his head to bleed. At this moment, the other barbarians were shocked. They really didn't expect this young man from Great Xia to have such valiant strength. "Leader, this Great Xia peasant is quite strong. Why don't you let me go?" a barbarian asked the leader. The leader waved his hand and said, "What's the hurry? IMOG only suffered a loss due to his carelessness. Give him another chance. When has my tribe's Lang heir ever been afraid of a Great Xia peasant?" IMOG bounced up from the ground. He wiped the blood from his forehead and looked at Yang Wu with a ferocious expression as he shouted, "Great Xia dog, you deserve to die." Immediately after, he once again charged towards Yang Wu with his steel spear. When he poured his strength into the steel spear, a strong brute force broke through the air and pierced towards Yang Wu's throat. This time, MOG used all his strength and didn't hold back at all. He definitely couldn't embarrass himself again. Yang Wu calmly looked at the incoming spear and realized that it was as slow as a tortoise. It didn't pose any threat at all. This was due to the increase in his spiritual power in the divine court realm. His five senses were definitely incomparable to ordinary people. He casually raised his hand and formed a claw in his palm, directly grabbing the brute force coming from the steel spear. He grabbed it forcefully, and the brute force exploded inch by inch. Even the steel spear broke along with it. IMOG was so frightened that he hurriedly stopped in his tracks and wanted to quickly retreat. However, how could Yang Wu let him go? He didn't seem to move at all and had already appeared in front of IMOG. He punched out like the wind and hit IMOG's lower abdomen. IMOG's strong body was sent flying like a dead dog. Blood spurted all over the sky, and there was no way for him to survive. Yang Wu instantly killed IMOG and completely stunned the barbarians. A barbarian roared angrily, "Despicable Great Xia commoner, you dare to kill my brother. I'll take your dog life." This barbarian squeezed his horse's belly and rushed out first. He held a horse-chopping broadsword in his hand and slashed towards Yang Wu. He slashed 7 times in a row in one breath. Every slash was glowing with a threatening Qianqi. In the blink of an eye, he had already landed on top of Yang Wu's head. This was a barbarian who had reached the advanced warrior realm. His strength was much stronger than Emog's. Unfortunately, this bit of strength was already nothing in Yang Wu's eyes. Yang Wu squatted down and conveniently dodged the 7 slashes. At the same time, he fiercely smashed a 1-inch punch on the ground, causing the nearby ground to cave in instantly. This caused the charging Fergana horse to lose its footing and fall forward. The barbarian's reaction was extremely fast. Before the horse fell, he had already leaped into the air. Holding the broadsword with both hands, he slashed towards Yang Wu's head with the force of Mount Tai. This slash had the aura of one who could defeat 10 with brute force. Its brute force had increased to the extent that even an ordinary top-notch warrior would not be able to withstand it. Yang Wu lowered his waist and sat in a horse stance. Facing this slash, he used a 1-inch punch. The fist force was like a dragon emerging from the sea, shattering the slash of the broadsword into pieces. It even knocked the broadsword out of the barbarian's hand. The webbing between his thumb and forefinger was bleeding. It was enough to show the strength of this punch. Without waiting for the barbarian to land on the ground, Yang Wu instantly gave a side kick. The tyrannical flying leg kicked the 200-pound barbarian away like a snowball. Shio! Suddenly, an arrow pierced through the air like a rainbow. Its target was the back of Yang Wu's head. The timing of the attack was really perfect. Just when the barbarian soldiers were worried that Yang Wu would be killed on the spot, Yang Wu squatted down as if he had eyes on the back of his head and dodged the fatal arrow. The arrow hit the tree trunk in front of him and instantly pierced through it before falling to the ground. After the first arrow failed, several more arrows were shot. Each arrow was shot from a different direction, and their target was Yang Wu. It was obvious that the barbarians did not want to play anymore and wanted to end Yang Wu's life. Yang Wu's divine sense was extremely powerful, and within a radius of 12 kilometers, nothing could escape his senses. When these arrows shot towards him, it was as if he could predict the future, and with a single movement of his body, he was able to dodge these arrows. You must kill this lowly commoner. The leader of the barbarians gave a death order. More arrows were shot at Yang Wu like raindrops, leaving Yang Wu with no way to dodge. Yang Wu shouted, "Come, I'm not afraid of you barbarian pigs." Yang Wu rolled in one direction and rushed to the front of the fallen Fergana horse. He grabbed the Fergana horse's legs and lifted it up. The Fergana horse was frightened and neighed again and again. However, it could not break free from Yang Wu's strong arms. Yang Wu used the Fergana horse as a shield to block the arrows. Bang! Bang! In an instant, the Fergana horse was shot into a hornet's nest. Blood splattered all over Yang Wu's body. Yang Wu took advantage of this moment and pulled out the 3-pronged spear that was tied to his back. He kicked the Fergana horse towards the barbarians and rushed out, swinging the 3-pronged spear to kill the barbarians. Yang Wu's strength was not what it used to be. Once he made a move, his Qianqi surged. The Qianqi of 50 to 60 feet was pressed towards the barbarians, causing 3 or 4 of them to be thrown off their horses. "Surround and kill him." The leader of the barbarians shouted with a bronze sword in his hand. He then led everyone to hunt down Yang Wu. "I can take your heads as meritorious service." Yang Wu shouted. The torrential storm spear technique was perfectly executed. The spear shadows filled the sky, and the overbearing spear light attacked different barbarians. These barbarians did not have time to block the spear light, and their bodies were penetrated by the spear light. One by one, they fell into a pool of blood. The leader of the barbarians and the other 3 barbarian generals exerted their strength together and used their unique skills. They must kill this lowly commoner of the Xia on the spot. In the blink of an eye, saber light and sword shadows, Qianqi surged, and killing intent filled the air. Chapter 99. Yang Wu's strength had improved greatly. He even dared to fight with a top-notch barbarian general, let alone these barbarians. Under his strength, the barbarians were killed one by one on the spot. Even the leader was not his match. Yang Wu stabbed the three-pronged spear in his hand in an extremely tricky direction. This stab was like a dragon or snake coming out of its hole. Its terrifying fangs were extremely sharp. In an instant, it pierced through the leader's 2 layers of Xian armor and went straight for his heart, killing him instantly. After the leader was killed, the remaining barbarians were scared out of their wits. They rode on their Fergana horses and quickly fled. One of them was more alert and sent out a rescue signal. In an instant, fireworks exploded in the sky. "Not good," Yang Wu exclaimed. He no longer showed any mercy. His legs were like the wind as he ran. He used the 3-pronged spear in his hand to perfection. Wherever he went, barbarians would be killed. In the end, none of the 30 or so barbarians managed to escape. All of them became dead souls in the hands of Yang Wu. Yang Wu looked at the corpses on the ground without any pity. It was not that he was cold-blooded and heartless. It was just that the war between the 2 countries was so cruel. If he fell into the hands of the barbarians, he would also die miserably. The enemy's reinforcements are here. I must take these heads. Yang Wu knew that time was tight. After he thought to himself, he chopped off the 30 or so heads. He wrapped them up in a big bag and then worried about how to take them away. It's not difficult to take back these 30 or so heads. But what about 300? Yang Wu thought gloomily. He now needed to chop off 500 barbarians' heads to redeem himself. At this time, Yang Wu couldn't help but look at the small space he opened up. He couldn't help but sigh. If only little Hay was here. Yang Wu didn't think too much about it. He carried the 30 or so heads and left this place first. Not long after he left, a few hundred barbarians appeared. When they saw the corpses on the ground, their faces turned completely black. It must be the work of a commoner of Great Xia. He shouldn't have gone far. You will form groups of 60 people and search for him. Once you find him, send out a distress signal. He might be an advanced general or even a top general. The leading barbarian general shouted. Just like that, the barbarians were divided into a few groups and started to search for Yang Wu's whereabouts. Yang Wu had escaped with a pile of human heads. So, the smell of blood must still be lingering in the air. There was no lack of tracking experts among the barbarians. So, they were already chasing in the direction where he had escaped. Yang Wu's divine sense was far more sensitive than that of ordinary people. He had already determined that there were people chasing after him. However, he was not very flustered. Instead, he was thinking about how to counterattack. He constantly sensed the surrounding environment. After a while, he finally found a place where there was a pack of wolves. This was the Fire Beacon mountain range. Demonic wolves lived in packs, and they were the masters of this mountain range. No one dared to provoke them. They usually lived in packs, and they were known to hold grudges. Because of this, regardless of whether it was the people of the Grand Xia Empire or the barbarian race, no one dared to provoke them. On the other hand, Yang Wu charged toward the wolf pack without a care in the world. Wolves were very vigilant. As soon as Yang Wu stepped into their territory, some of the wolves cried out in alarm. This was the howl of an enemy invasion. The ears of the demonic wolves in different directions twitched, and their eyes flashed with ferocious glints. One by one, they rushed out from different directions. Soon, nearly 100 demonic wolves appeared and surrounded Yang Wu's position. When Yang Wu saw the wolf fangs surrounding him, he quickly took out the wolf fangs that were hanging in front of his chest. He shouted, "Be good, you wolf brothers, don't be in a hurry. This Viscount is a friend of the wolf clan. This is a gift from the wolf king, Lang Jia. Take a look." Yang Wu was not afraid of these wolves. Instead, he was afraid of being entangled by them endlessly. At that time, he would not be able to hunt the barbarians. Sure enough, after Yang Wu took out the wolf tooth, many of the wolves saw that some of them cried out again. So the surrounding wolves did not immediately pounce on Yang Wu. A tall and strong wolf general slowly walked out. He stared at Yang Wu and said, "Since you are a friend of the Wolf King, you are our friend. Do you need any help?" Yang Wu smiled and replied, "I am being chased by the barbarians. Can you lend me a place to stay for a while?" "No problem. However, we do not want to get involved in the disputes of the human race. We have an agreement with the kings of your two tribes. The wolf general replied. Of course. They should not break into your place. If they insist on coming in, you don't have to be polite to them. Yang Wu said. Okay. The wolf general replied. In this way, Yang Wu casually threw the pile of heads behind him. Then, he instructed the wolf general not to let the other wolves eat these heads. Then, he casually hid his breath and prepared to ambush the barbarians. Outside the territory of the wolves, the barbarians all stopped. The leader was a high-level barbarian general called Aurora. He was only about 25 years old and was one of the commanders of the younger generation. His brute force had already reached the second stage. Even ordinary top-level barbarian generals were not his opponent. He was one of the candidates for the strongest warrior of the younger generation. His position in the barbarian race was very high. If he could become the strongest warrior, he could even become the target of the princess and become the prince consort of the royal family. The tall and handsome Aurora carried a thin sword on his back. This kind of soft weapon was very rare in the barbarian race. He was riding on a flame war tiger. Its fiery red fur was very dazzling. Commander, this is the territory of Wolf General Langao. If we go in, we will be attacked by them. A barbarian respectfully said to Aurora. The wolves have always been the tongue too that we barbarians want to take in. I really want to rush in and take them all down. Aurora revealed an extremely eager expression. After a pause, he said, Inform everyone to surround this area. It's fine if the Great Xia's untouchables don't come out. Once they do, kill them without mercy. Aurora was not a brainless person. He did not want to provoke the wolves for no reason. Otherwise, it would be a disaster for them when they enter the mountain range in the future. Soon, hundreds of barbarians were gathered again. They surrounded the nearby mountain range, planning to catch a turtle in a jar. Many of the wolves cried out in dissatisfaction. This was their territory. How could they be surrounded by barbarians? However, these barbarians did not attack them. Instead, they took the initiative to hunt some wild beasts and feed them to reduce their malice. The barbarians did not only have the talent of brute force. Some of them could get close to the spirit demons and had the means to control them. An old barbarian beside Aurora, Mengu, had this ability. The idea of hunting and feeding the wild beasts was all this old barbarian's idea. Mengu was a powerful branch of the barbarians. He came from the Meng clan. Their master was a powerful beast tamer who could tame spirit demons and wild beasts. The reason why the barbarians were powerful was also greatly related to the Meng clan. The barbarians had always wanted to invade the Great Xia's territory because they had a ferocious beast army that was not afraid of death. That was why they dared to be so arrogant in front of the Great Xia. Otherwise, with their numbers, they would not be able to contend against the Great Xia. Uncle Meng, can we really make the wolves listen to us? Aurora asked Mengu. Mengu shook his head and said, It's not that easy. We are just showing our goodwill and not letting these wolves attack us for the time being. Otherwise, with us surrounding the territory of the wolves, they will attack us sooner or later. Is there no other way to find out about the situation of that Great Xia pariah? Aurora asked again. From the situation of the corpse just now, they could conclude that only one person from the Great Xia had attacked. This meant that they only had one enemy. The other party was definitely not weak, and they could not let him go. Aurora did not think that the other party had died in the stomach of the wolves. Otherwise, there would not be no movement in the territory of the wolves. Don't be anxious. I'm trying to see if I can get in touch with the wolves. Mengu said, and carried a wild boar into the territory of the wolves to feed it. Mengu was indeed a beast tamer. When he saw a few approaching wolves, he threw the wild boar over and recited an ancient incantation. When those wolves were eating the wild boar, they were unknowingly influenced by Mengu and began to communicate with him. Very soon, Mengu obtained the information he needed. A youth from the Great Xia had barged into their territory, but their leader had ordered them not to attack him, saying that he was an important guest of their tribe. After Mengu told this news to Aurora, Aurora frowned and said, Could it be that the Great Xia pariah has a powerful background? Follow the original plan to seal him off. Unless he doesn't come out, we can kill him once he comes out. Besides, the wolves also said that they will not help either side. Mengu responded, "Okay, let the others carry out the plan. I want to see what methods this great Xia pariah has," Aurora said with a wave of her hand. In the territory of the wolves, Yang Wu was gnawing on an old medicine pulled out from the ground. This was a wild radish, which was the favorite food of wild rabbits. It had the effect of clearing heat and detoxifying poison. To Yang Wu, it was the best food to allay his hunger. While Yang Wu was eating the wild radish, he had already released his divine sense. He understood the situation around him at a glance, and he was even more clear about the barbarians' arrangements. He muttered, "Looks like these barbarians aren't simple." Yang Wu stood up, holding the snakeskin bough that he had obtained as a spoil of war, and rushed in one direction. That was the place where the barbarians had arranged the fewest troops. The place was located at the edge of a cliff, so it wasn't an ideal place to escape. It was also a place that the barbarians didn't care about too much, only sending 5 barbarians to guard it. Yang Wu's movements were very light, and he swept past from an angle that the 5 barbarians couldn't see. His target was the guy who was in the middle of relieving himself of his 3 needs. I almost couldn't hold it in. It's so much more comfortable to let it out. After relieving himself of his 3 needs, the barbarian trembled as he spoke calmly. But the moment he stood up, an arrow shot into his throat. He didn't even have time to scream before he squatted back into the bushes. Chapter 100. The snakeskin bough was one of the spoils of war that Yang Wu had looted from the 30 barbarian soldiers that he had killed. Among them, there were many arrows that he carried on his back. Although he did not practice archery, he was born with an extraordinary background. He also liked to practice martial arts and often hunted beasts with a group of friends. His archery skills were passable, which could be seen from the barbarian in front of him that he had killed. After killing one, he aimed at another barbarian and shot another arrow, hitting the barbarian's heart. Blood splattered out, and the barbarian fell to the ground. The other 3 barbarians were not far away. If he shot another arrow, he would be discovered in an instant. He bent his body and strode forward like a cat. He was calculating in his mind how to kill them in the shortest time possible without causing too much of a commotion. Yang Wu kept dodging and getting closer to the 3 barbarians. He pulled out the 3-pronged spear from his back and used it as an arrow. He murmured in his heart, "This shot can't kill the 3 of them, but it's enough to make them fall." Yang Wu drew the snakeskin bough to its fullest, knocked the 3-pronged spear, and shot out fiercely. He did not intend to kill the barbarians with this arrow, but only to distract them. The 3-pronged spear shot out like a rainbow, causing quite a commotion. The barbarian in front turned his head to look, but before he could react, he was shot in the side. The strong impact sent him flying towards the 2 barbarians beside him, causing them to stagger and fall. At this moment, Yang Wu was like a lion hunting for its prey. He rushed out at an astonishing speed, crossing 100 meters in the blink of an eye. When the 2 uninjured barbarian soldiers got up, he was already 20 feet away from them. 2 powerful palm prints were aimed at their faces. Bang! Bang! The 2 barbarians were only barbarian soldiers. How could they withstand Yang Wu's sudden attack? Their faces were blurred and their strong bodies fell to the ground. They were completely dead. "Someone come." The barbarian who was hit by Yang Wu's trident was still alive, and he cried out in alarm. Just as he finished shouting, Yang Wu had already kicked him, and his head was directly smashed to smithereens. What a waste of a good head! Yang Wu sighed with heartache. He took out a dull iron knife and cut off the heads in front of him. This time, Yang Wu didn't make much noise. Even the barbarian's shout didn't travel far. But when Yang Wu took the heads and ran away, the other barbarians rushed over. But they didn't manage to catch up to Yang Wu. "How dare he hunt our men? He must not have run away. Everyone, hurry up and search the area. Be on high alert. Once we discover his whereabouts, we must send out a signal," a barbarian general shouted angrily. However, at this moment, an arrow was shot at the barbarian general's face at an extremely fast speed. The barbarian general reacted quickly. When the arrow was about to land on his face, he stretched out his hand and grabbed it. However, the arrow's forward momentum was too strong. It carried his arm and pierced his face. He was so scared that he used all his strength to throw the arrow to the side. However, his face was still scratched by the tip of the arrow. Blood immediately seeped out. "Bastard, shoot that brat to death!" the barbarian general shouted angrily. Regardless of what he said, the other barbarians had already taken action. Some of them chased after Yang Wu, while others shot arrows. They were determined to take him down. Yang Wu pointed his middle finger at the barbarian general and laughed. "If you have the guts, then come in and chase after me." With a few leaps, Yang Wu once again entered the territory of the demon wolves. Some of the fearless barbarians chased after him. Immediately, more than 10 demon wolves rushed out from different directions and attacked these barbarians. They were so scared that they kept retreating. They could not rashly attack the demon wolves. Once they were attacked by the demon wolves, it would be even more disadvantageous for them. This made them feel very sullen. If this goes on, it will be very difficult for us to kill this great Xia lowlife, a barbarian said unwillingly. Did anyone notice why the demon wolves didn't attack that great Xia lowlife? Another barbarian raised his doubts. At this moment, everyone understood that this great Xia person must have some secrets that they were not aware of. The leading barbarian general quickly reported the situation to Aurora. Mengu naturally heard it from the side. His old face turned ugly as he said, "This great Xia person must have established a relationship with the demon wolves here. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to come and go as he pleases. Wolves are a type of demon spirit that rejects other races. Are we just going to let go like this?" Aurora frowned. Mengu muttered to himself for a moment before saying, "We can't go on like this. Let's retreat first. He can't stay in the demon wolves' territory forever. Once he comes out, I have a way to make him unable to hide." "All right, we'll do as Uncle Meng says," Aurora agreed after thinking for a moment. The barbarians, who had come in a menacing manner a moment ago, retreated like a receding tide. After Yang Wu, who had been staying in the demon wolves' territory all this time, sensed the situation, he was full of doubts. Could it be that they were scared away just by killing a few people? Aren't these barbarians too cowardly? Yang Wu went out secretly and indeed found that the barbarians had left. However, he could also think that the barbarians might be retreating in order to advance. They would wait for him to come out before surrounding and killing him. Therefore, he once again plunged into the demon wolves' territory. He was in no hurry to leave. This time, Yang Wu returned to the demon wolves' territory not to hide from those barbarians, but to find a way to expand the space in his body. He had to expand it so that he could take in more heads. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough space. The art of heaven and earth can open up a space. It can also be expanded as my strength increases. I must expand it so that I can take in more heads. After Yang Wu muttered to himself, he closed his eyes and began to frantically adjust the innate embryonic qi in his peach core dantian. Then, he combined it with the mental strength in his divine court and began to gather it in the space of the universe. After Yang Wu absorbed the death brand of the female king, his mental strength and physical strength had been greatly improved. This time, it was not difficult to expand the space, but the increase was not as great as he had imagined. It had only expanded by a small half of the space compared to before. There was still a quarter of the space to be full. It could only take in a few more heads. This space is too small. Yang Wu sighed dejectedly. If Little Hane knew that Yang Wu had expanded the space of the universe again and was not satisfied with it, she would definitely scold him. She knew very well how difficult it was to expand the space of the universe in one's body. Only those who were born with a perfect body could master it quickly, and they also needed to be at least a king tier. Yang Wu was only a top-tier warrior, but he had such an ability and could expand the space so quickly. He was not someone ordinary people could compare with. Yang Wu decided to go all the way. He called Lang Gao over. He wanted to deposit the heads here. When he returned to the army, he would take them back together. Lang Gao did not have any objections. He was from a spirit goblin clan and had great respect for those in higher positions. Yang Wu was Lang Jie's friend, so he was also his friend. He did not want to neglect him. After that, Yang Wu dug a hole and found some herbs that could be used to prevent corrosion for a short period of time. He threw the 10 or so heads he had obtained into the hole. Then he left the Goblin Wolf clan's territory and chased after the barbarian tribe team. It had to be said that Yang Wu was very brave. He dared to take the initiative to attack so many people. Yang Wu moved forward while sensing the movements in all directions. He knew that the barbarians would definitely ambush him. Sure enough, not long after he left the Goblin Wolf clan's territory, he found that there were several groups of people hiding in the grass in different directions. If it was not for his extraordinary divine sense, he would not have been able to detect their existence. Yang Wu did not foolishly run over to fight with them. That was very unwise. He was considering choosing a direction where there were fewer people to hunt. Soon, he sensed that there was a group of people in one direction. There were only a few dozen people. He lurked in that direction without thinking. He did not notice that there were 2 large eagles following him in the sky above his head. There were 2 people sitting on these 2 large eagles. They were Arlo and Mengu. This rat is finally willing to come out. We have been waiting for a long time, Arlo said impatiently. Then he called out to Mengu, Uncle Meng, let's go down and kill him. Don't worry. This bastard perception is very strong. Moreover, he dared to attack us alone. It is enough to show his confidence. We will immediately inform the others to surround and hunt him. This time, he will not be allowed to escape back to the Goblin Wolf clan's territory, Mengu said. Let's do as Uncle Meng said. You go and inform the others. I will follow him. I want to see how strong his combat power is, Arlo responded. Then he rode the large eagle and chased in the direction of Yang Wu. At this time, Yang Wu was already close to the hidden group of 50 to 60 barbarians. He had already locked onto the person at the front with his perception. He began to draw his bow and arrow. He would kill a few of them first. Yang Wu used flowing clouds and water. He shot an arrow in one breath. Before the arrow hit the target, the second and third arrows were shot from behind. His speed was really shocking. The 3 arrows were shot consecutively. It looked like 3 arrows were shot at the same time. They fell on the 3 barbarians who were on guard at the front. The 3 barbarians were only at the warrior realm. They did not have time to react before they were shot. 2 of them were killed on the spot. The last one did not hit a vital point. He shouted, "Enemy attack!" Soon, the barbarians who were lying in ambush here panicked. They did not know how their whereabouts were exposed. Where is the enemy? Let's kill them. The leader of this group of barbarians raised his mace and shouted mightily. The moment he stood up, an arrow flew over his head and shot his helmet away. In an instant, he felt the urge to urinate. A foul smell immediately filled the area. Chapter 101. F***CK. I made a mistake. When Yang Wu saw that his arrow had missed, he couldn't help but despise his own archery skills. At this moment, the group of barbarians had already charged towards him. They had abandoned their mounts and were charging towards him with their weapons in hand. They were all brave and skillful barbarians. It was no joke for them to charge at him together. Even a general realm expert wouldn't dare to fall into their encirclement. If they did, they would be exhausted to death. Let me fight to my heart's content. Yang Wu didn't dodge. After he shouted loudly, he put away the snakeskin bow and charged towards the barbarians with his bare hands. His footsteps were like the wind as he met the barbarian who was the first to charge at him. The barbarian's combat weapon swung towards his waist. Its powerful strength was more than 10 cauldrons. Unfortunately, this kind of strength was nothing in Yang Wu's eyes. Yang Wu grabbed the barbarian's combat weapon and pulled it back. The barbarian's body was knocked back uncontrollably. In the blink of an eye, 5 or 6 barbarians were knocked to the ground. Yang Wu also took advantage of this time. Like a ferocious tiger released from its cage, he rushed in front of the barbarians. His fists and palms attacked from left and right. A powerful force was unleashed, and several barbarians exploded on the spot. The other barbarians' attacks also arrived. They used all their strength. Colorful xianqi shrouded them, and they wanted to torture Yang Wu to death. Cicada clothes appeared on Yang Wu's body. He didn't care about these attacks at all. He charged towards them violently. His legs flew up, and a series of afterimages flashed. Several more barbarians were sent rolling. Yang Wu was determined to train his 1-inch punch, mountain-shattering palm, and scud-kick combat skills. While the barbarians were shouting, Yang Wu became braver and fiercer as he fought. His battle blood boiled, and his moves became fiercer and fiercer. However, these small fries in front of him couldn't help him advance his combat skills at all. He had to put more pressure on them. After he killed more than 20 barbarians, four barbarian generals finally formed a formation and charged towards him. These 4 barbarian generals called the others to stand behind them. The 4 of them stood in different positions and formed a general aura, forming a 4 barbarian bull formation. Their profound armors flickered, and each of them held shield. Like a bull, they charged towards Yang Wu. Behind the shields, there were long spears that were like the horns of a bull. They were extremely sharp and fierce. Even an advanced general would be in a hurry to deal with this move, but Yang Wu didn't. His eyesight and hearing had been greatly improved with the evolution of the divine court. He could see the flaws of the 4-sided raging bull formation and respond to it immediately. Whirling wave palm, Yang Wu changed his combat skill. He used the palm force with the spiral force to send out 4 palms in the air. The power contained in each palm was extremely domineering. The spiral force directly spun the shields out of the hands of the 4 barbarians, causing them to stagger and lose their balance. They couldn't maintain their powerful momentum at all. Yang Wu attacked again. First, he dodged the spear that one of the barbarians thrust at him. Then, he grabbed the spear and slapped the barbarian general's face with his other palm. The barbarian general's eardrum was bleeding and his body was sent flying. He even seized the spear in his hand. Without thinking, he threw the spear back at the barbarian general who had been sent flying and nailed him to the ground. Yang Wu had just killed 1 barbarian when the other 3 barbarians thrust their spears at him from behind. As if he had eyes on the back of his head, Yang Wu twisted his body like a snake, causing the 3 spears to brush past his clothes and not really be stabbed. Before the 3 barbarian generals came to their senses, Yang Wu gave them a very beautiful roundhouse kick. The domineering Xian Qi drew a sharp arc in the air and kicked the 3 barbarian generals away, causing them to vomit blood. Just as Yang Wu was about to give chase, the rest of the barbarians had already surrounded him. They didn't approach Yang Wu. Some of them lifted rocks and threw them at him. Some of them shot out arrows, and some of them threw their weapons. The barbarians' attacks covered the sky and covered the earth. It was like a battlefield. Under such an attack, Yang Wu still did not plan to use his weapon. Both of his palms continuously struck out, and powerful, profound qi continuously blasted out, blocking the attacks one after another. He himself, on the other hand, continuously attacked and rushed forward. It was impossible for him to stay in place and be used as a sieve. He thought to himself, these mutants who have been on the battlefield are indeed not comparable to those slaves in the prison. In the prison field, after he displayed such powerful strength, those slaves were almost beaten silly. How could they be like these barbarians who could still carry out effective counterattacks in a short period of time? Fortunately, these attacks weren't stronger than him. He was still able to rely on the senses of the divine court to evade the attacks and rush out a path. When he got close to the nearest barbarian, his palms were like dragons emerging from the sea and exploded on the spot. This time, he couldn't stop. He used both his fists and legs and released a lot of Xian Qi from his body. He beat more than 20 barbarians in front of him until they fell to the ground. No one could stop his strength. Just when he was in the mood to kill, the leader of the barbarian generals, who was scared to death, finally seized the opportunity and used all of his strength. The combat weapon in his hand gathered a brute force of 70 feet and formed a dense shape of a bull. It smashed towards Yang Wu's back. Great Xia Da Da, the leader of the barbarian generals roared. Bull-piercing bone. Every spike on the wolf guard's mace was like the tip of a bull. The power it contained was incomparably sharp and terrifying. Even an iron wall would be pierced through directly. At this moment, Yang Wu was being held tightly by a barbarian who didn't care about his life. There was no way for him to escape in a short period of time. He forcefully dragged the barbarian to block the attack. Bang! The barbarian in front of Yang Wu was directly smashed into pieces. However, The mace's attack wasn't hindered. It still penetrated the barbarian's body and ruthlessly smashed onto Yang Wu's body. The impact caused Yang Wu to lean forward a few steps. His cicada clothes were shattered and a trace of blood immediately seeped out from his back. Even though his physique was astonishing, he was still injured under the full force attack of the leader of the barbarian generals. The leader of the barbarian generals was greatly roused. He howled, "Great Xia dog, you're dead meat." Once again, he used all of his strength to smash his mace at Yang Wu. One move after another, the power contained in each move was truly domineering. He blasted out a 5-foot-deep pit on the ground. Many trees were swept up by the brute force and directly fell down. Only Yang Wu wasn't hit again. Yang Wu had already suffered a loss just now. How could he suffer a loss again? His reaction ability was much more agile than that of a top-notch warlord. When the leader of the barbarian generals missed a few moves in a row, Yang Wu seized the opportunity when the leader's strength had just dissipated and before the leader's new strength could be generated. He suddenly exerted his strength. "I had a good time just now. It's my turn now," Yang Wu shouted loudly. He approached the left side of the leader of the barbarian generals, and a round of fierce attacks swept across the leader's body. 1-inch punch, mountain collapsing palm, flying speed kick. The leader of the barbarian generals tragically became the target of Yang Wu's attacks. The 3 layers of Xian armor on his body were completely shattered. His fists hit his flesh, his palms drew blood, and his legs were deadly. It was also in this attack that the leader of the barbarian generals was beaten into meat paste. His combat skills had all advanced. His fists, palms, and legs had all entered the proficient stage. His combat strength had increased by a lot. When the leader of the barbarian generals was beaten up, the surviving barbarians were already frightened. They couldn't continue to kill because the opponent was too strong. When Yang Wu wanted to continue to chase after the barbarians, he suddenly felt a whooshing sound behind his head. He was so frightened that he rolled on the ground. A sharp arrow was directly nailed to the ground. The entire arrow was buried in the ground. If he had been a little slower, the back of his head would have definitely exploded. Swoosh, swoosh. Several more arrows were shot. The power of these arrows was really powerful, and they were also very accurate. It could be said that they had the power to pierce through a willow leaf from 100 paces away. Yang Wu was forced to constantly dodge, and finally, after drilling into a large rock, he was barely able to avoid the arrows. However, before he could relax, he felt another threat above his head. He dodged to the side, and another arrow was hidden in the place where he was just now. How could they find me like this? Something is strange. After Yang Wu cursed in his heart, he raised his head and looked at the sky. Sure enough, he saw a big eagle circling above his head. A man was sitting on it and shooting another arrow at him. This time, Yang Wu looked at the arrow that was in front of him in the blink of an eye. He directly caught the arrow in his hand. The arrow was surging violently and was about to pierce Yang Wu's face. However, he caught it firmly, making it unable to go any further. Yang Wu looked at the man on the big eagle above and shouted, "I'll return it to you." Yang Wu held the arrow and swung it, ruthlessly throwing the arrow into the sky. His archery was not inferior to the power of the shot. In fact, it was much stronger. It directly nailed the big eagle. "Hee, you're far from being able to compete with me in archery." Aurora, who was sitting on the big eagle, sneered and shot another arrow. The arrow directly shot at the arrow that Yang Wu had thrown back. The 2 arrows accurately collided and broke in midair. "Barbarian, if you have the guts, come down and fight for 300 rounds. Yang Wu raised his middle finger at Aurora and shouted provocatively, "Great Xia dog, wait until you take another arrow from me." Aurora sneered and reached back with his palm. At the same time, he pulled out 3 arrows and knocked them on the bowstring. He pulled the horn bow in his hand to the fullest. The 3 arrows were like rainbows that shot at Yang Wu at an extremely fast speed. F*CK, 1 arrow turned into 3 arrows. "Barbarian, you're ruthless." Yang Wu looked at the 3 arrows that were shot at him at the same time. The powerful pressure was really strong. It was as if he could not dodge it no matter how hard he tried. He simply pulled out his trident and swung it, directly deflecting the 3 arrows at the same time. When his trident came into contact with the 3 arrows, he felt a strong rebound force that almost shook the trident out of his hand. Fortunately, he managed to block the 3 arrows at the same time. However, it was also at this moment that he realized that he was heavily surrounded. He cursed inwardly. "Damn it, I've been tricked by this barbarian. Come on, great Dog. I'll have a fair fight with you." Aurora let the big eagle fly lower, then jumped down from the big eagle and shouted. Chapter 102. Yang Wu was surrounded. Nearly 400 barbarian soldiers surrounded him layer by layer. It would be difficult for him to escape, even if he had wings. These people were all part of Aurora's team. Previously, they had spread out to ambush Yang Wu, but they were all summoned by Mengu once again. Yang Wu could not divert his attention to sense the situation around him when he was killing people. In addition, Aurora had continuously shot arrows in order to interfere with Yang Wu and not give him any chance to react. Now, Yang Wu finally could not escape. It was precisely because of this that Aurora felt at ease to jump down from the large eagle and challenge Yang Wu. Previously, he had already watched Yang Wu's battle and knew that Yang Wu's combat strength was very strong. However, this was not a bad thing for him because he wanted to attack the strongest warrior. Yang Wu was his best whetstone. At this moment, Mengu and a group of barbarians appeared. They all stood behind Aurora to boost his momentum. "Aurora, you have to be careful. This great Xia peasant is not weak." Mengu did not persuade Aurora and only reminded him. "Uncle Meng, don't worry. He will become a dead soul in my hands." Aurora replied with incomparable confidence. Then he looked at Yang Wu and sneered, "Come on, great Dog. Let me see how strong you really are." Yang Wu looked at the barbarians surrounding him and silently counted in his heart. "After killing all the barbarians here, it should be enough for me to atone for my sins." Aurora was ignored by Yang Wu and revealed a displeased expression. "Great Dog, are you afraid? If you can defeat me, I promise to give you another chance to escape. If you lose, I can also leave you with an intact corpse. Otherwise, you will die an even more miserable death." Only then did Yang Wu look at Aurora and gently shake his head. "You alone are not enough. All of you can come to me together. Great Dog, you are really arrogant. But only like this can you be my whetstone." After Aurora scolded, he walked towards Yang Wu. Aurora was 7 feet tall and was a head taller than Yang Wu, who was still in the developing stage. His body was as strong as a rock, while Yang Wu's figure was much thinner. As Aurora got closer and closer, Yang Wu smiled and said, "Let's talk things out. There's no need to use swords and spears." Aurora thought that Yang Wu was afraid and immediately sneered again. "It's no use to say anything today. You only have one chance." Before he could finish speaking, Yang Wu had already moved. At this moment, Yang Wu dashed forward like a leopard. His movements were astonishingly fast, and he had already exploded to the extreme at his fastest speed. All of his strength gathered on his arms, and the shadow of a dragon turtle condensed behind him. A shocking aura enveloped Aurora, causing Aurora to become slightly dazed. It was also at this moment that Yang Wu's attack had already mercilessly blasted onto Aurora's body. Dragon Turtle Sea-Turning Technique. This was Yang Wu's trump card. Usually, he would only use it at the last moment to kill his enemies. However, he had already used all of his strength in the first move against Aurora. It was not that he felt that he could not win against Aurora, but he knew that Aurora was a strong opponent. Otherwise, Aurora would not have taken the initiative to give him a so-called fair chance to fight. It was precisely because of this that Yang Wu planned to end him when Aurora underestimated him. This would also save him a lot of trouble. After the training in the prison, Yang Wu's will was also rapidly maturing. He was no longer like a 17-year-old youth. Aurora had been preparing all along. He did not underestimate Yang Wu, but with hundreds of people behind him, he had no reason to be afraid that Yang Wu would play any tricks. At the same time, he felt that Yang Wu would choose to break out of the encirclement and not stay to fight to the death with him. Unfortunately, Yang Wu did not play by the rules and attacked him with all his strength. It was already too late for him to retreat. Yang Wu's attack was too fast. Bang! The blue profound chi emitted by Yang Wu was incomparably overbearing, like a dragon turtle rushing out of the water. That torrential wave reversed and struck Arua Luo's body. Arua Luo's body was blasted away and only stopped after landing 5 or 6 meters away, causing a lot of dust to fly endlessly. Aurora, Commander, Mengu, and the barbarians beside him cried out in alarm. They all ran towards Alo Luo. Mengu even ordered, "Beat this brat into meat paste." After he gave the order, a wave of extremely fierce attacks were launched toward Yang Wu. Yang Wu was already prepared. When he sent Aurora flying, he had already pulled out his trident spear and charged in one direction to break out of the encirclement. Yang Wu waved his trident spear. Streaks of xianxi formed a spear net that enveloped the sky above him, hitting the arrows and weapons that were shot at him and causing them to fall to the ground. Yang Wu ran very fast and charged very fiercely. However, the barbarians were even fiercer. They directly drove out 20 Fergana horses and fiercely stabbed the Fergana horses' buttocks. The Fergana horses felt the pain and crazily charged toward Yang Wu's position. Although these Fergana horses were not offensive spirit demons and were only first-class treasure horses, their power was not to be underestimated when they went crazy. The horses' hooves flew and dust filled the air as they neighed. Yang Wu's expression changed greatly. He really did not expect these barbarians to make such a move. There was no way for him to dodge, so he could only face these crazy Fergana horses head-on. The Fergana horse in the lead charged very fiercely. Its horsepower was very strong. Even if a warrior was hit by it, he would be seriously injured. Yang Wu immediately bent his body and swept his trident spear at the horse's legs. The Fergana horse with great momentum was tripped and directly flew into the sky. The other Fergana horses rushed to Yang Wu's side from behind. Yang Wu waved his trident spear again and again. Every sweep of the trident spear contained the force of dozens of cauldrons. The horses in the lead were badly mutilated and fell to the ground on the spot. The horses that rushed from behind were also tripped. On the right, there were still a few horses that jumped in the air and angrily stomped on Yang Wu. The horses' hooves were raised high in the air and were full of momentum. Once they stomped down, the ground would definitely crack and the rocks would shatter. Get lost! Yang Wu was already enraged by the horse's momentum. He roared and punched out with his free hand. A tyrannical fist energy landed below the horse's abdomen. In an instant, the extremely powerful Fergana horse exploded, leaving only a pool of horse blood that poured down like rain. After killing the horse, Yang Wu didn't stop. He swept his trident again, and a powerful, profound chi flickered like a rainbow. The horses that were rushing towards him were all sent flying, and it was difficult for them to cause him the slightest bit of damage. After all, these Fergana horses were not powerful spirit demons. They could only intimidate people with their imposing manner. For someone like Yang Wu, they were nothing. After the 20 Fergana horses were sent to their deaths, the other barbarians had already rushed over and were ready to chop Yang Wu into meat paste. However, at this time, an angry voice sounded, "All of you stop. Leave this be *TCH to me." It was Arlo's voice. He had climbed up again and did not seem to have suffered any injuries. Those with discerning eyes could see that a golden silk armor had appeared under his torn clothes. It seemed to be a real king's armor, and not as simple as an ordinary armor. Yang Wu carried the trident spear on his back and looked coldly at Arlo. He said with a smile, "You weren't killed just now, and now you're here to die, right? Hurry up and come." Yang Wu's words were full of provocation. Arlo was no longer polite. He waved the ivory spear in his hand and shouted, "I was just careless just now. Now, you won't have another chance, you little be *TCH." Arlo rushed over, and the ivory spear burst forth with a powerful brute force as it went straight for Yang Wu's chest. This spear was straightforward, but the brute force it contained was not to be underestimated. Yang Wu did not think too much. He held the trident spear and fought with Arlo. The two of them were evenly matched in strength. The two war spears kept colliding with each other, and bursts of sparks kept splattering in all directions. The The clanging sounds were even more ear-piercing. Yang Wu used the trident spear to perform the perfect rainstorm spear technique, wanting to assassinate Arlo with a swift and violent momentum. However, Arlo was violent. His brute force was stronger than that of ordinary barbarian generals. He held the spear with great strength and attacked with great force. He used his strength to overcome all of Yang Wu's spear shadows and even forced Yang Wu to retreat step by step. He fully displayed the talent of the barbarians. Good job, Commander. You're the strongest warrior. Kill this *TCH of Great Xia. Commander was just careless earlier. Now that Commander has shown his prowess, no one could stop him. That's true. Commander is now one of the candidates for the strongest warrior. He has already awakened 2 levels of brute force. Once he gets serious, even our clan's top-notch general realm lord won't be a match for him. This *TCH of Great Xia has already been defeated. There's no chance of him surviving. Many barbarian warriors cried out softly. In their eyes, Arlo would definitely win and Yang Wu would definitely lose. On the other hand, Arlo wasn't as relaxed as they said. Although he seemed to have the upper hand now, his opponent didn't suffer any losses. On the contrary, he was almost stabbed in his vital parts several times. Even the 3 layers of Xian armor on his body couldn't withstand the attacks. He thought to himself, it seems that I have to use brute force. The barbarians were born with extraordinary brute force. However, not every barbarian could awaken the talent of their bloodline. It was already good for a barbarian to awaken 1 level of brute force. Only those who could awaken 2 levels of brute force were considered geniuses among the barbarians. Those who could awaken 3 levels of brute force would be incredible. Currently, only a few people could do it. *TCH a Great Xia, I'm done warming up. Prepare to die. After Arlo shouted, he finally used 1 level of brute force. The strength of the ivory spear in his hand increased by a notch. Under the heavy smash, a corner of Yang Wu's 3-pronged spear cracked. Yang Wu was even forced to take 2 or 3 steps back. The web between his thumb and forefinger felt a little numb. Before Yang Wu could react, Arlo had already used his strongest move. The ivory spear in his hand charged forward like a giant tusked elephant. The elephant's trunk brought about a tricky arc as it pierced toward Yang Wu's heart. Celestial Moon Luring. Chapter 103. The astronomical spear technique was a superior general technique. It was not something that any barbarian could cultivate. Aurora was the descendant of a chief of a barbarian tribe. His status was not low, which was why he could cultivate such a superior general technique. Moreover, he had already cultivated it to the spiritual stage. Otherwise, how could he dare to compete for the honor of being the strongest warrior? When Aurora used this technique, it meant that he wanted to determine the victor between him and Yang Wu. Such an attack was enough to make a high-level general warrior a piece of cake. After Yang Wu had condensed a flower bud in the divine court realm, his senses had become extraordinary. He could clearly see the trajectory of Aurora's powerful attack. Without thinking, Yang Wu threw out the trident spear with all his strength. Swift and decisive, Yang Wu used a soldier-level combat skill, but the power it displayed was not inferior to Aurora's general technique at all. After all, Yang Wu had already comprehended the soldier-level combat skill to the perfect stage. Clink, clink. Yang Wu was once again forced back by Arlo, and the 3-pronged spear in his hand fell off piece by piece, as if it couldn't bear the weight. If this continued, the spear would definitely be destroyed. Yang Wu did not have the time to care about this. This was the first time he felt a different brute force, which let him see the uniqueness of the barbarians. What a powerful force. I have to go all out, Yang Wu thought to himself. Then, he finally entered the real battle state. He had been holding back at first. His purpose was to save some energy to deal with the other barbarians. Now, he had to deal with this guy in front of him first. 4 extraordinary meridians twitched at the same time. They were like 4 great rivers that poured into every part of Yang Wu's body. The primordial mystical essence Qi that was steaming in his dantian was gathered by these 4 great rivers at the same time. His power instantly multiplied. Yang Wu attacked again. The terrifying power forced Aurora back for the first time. What did you get stronger? Have you not been using your full strength all this time? Aurora cried out in surprise. Congratulations, you got it right. I'll reward you with a spear. Yang Wu laughed. He stepped forward and thrust the trident spear at Aurora's lower abdomen. Ruo Luo dodged to the side, and the trident brushed past his abdomen. His profound armor instantly shattered, and his clothes were torn apart, revealing the golden silk armor underneath. Aurora had this golden silk armor, which could be considered a life-saving armor. Unless Yang Wu attacked his head, it would be difficult for him to receive any fatal damage. Yang Wu was obviously aware of this. In the next round of attacks, he focused on attacking Aurora's head and limbs. The torrential spear art completely unleashed a torrential storm of attacks. Aurora could only parry and defend. He was forced to retreat again and again. His clothes were torn in many places, and there were many bloody wounds on his limbs. When the surrounding barbarians saw that their leader was forced to retreat and injured, they all had an expression of disbelief. They no longer had the slightest bit of excitement. They were only prepared to join the battle at any time. They absolutely could not let Yang Wu kill their leader. The strength of the barbarians was publicly acknowledged. However, when they had an innate advantage, they would inevitably lose another advantage, which was speed. Their bodies were tall and strong, but unfortunately, their movement speed was much slower. It was precisely because of this that Yang Wu's swift and violent attacks were able to achieve miraculous results. Aurora had grown up with a halo. Other than some top geniuses of the high tribes who would be forced into such a sorry state, no one else could have such an ability. Now, he was completely enraged. He roared involuntarily. No matter how powerful your attacks are, they are absolutely ineffective in front of my brute force supreme force. The second level of brute force, supreme force. The first level of the barbarians was brute force supreme force. The second level was brute force supreme force. The third level was brute force supreme force. And the fourth level was brute force supreme force. These were the well-known 4 levels of strength of the barbarians. Many barbarians could not even use the first level of brute force supreme force. They were only born with great strength. Once they obtained the first level of strength, their explosive power would be 2 or 3 times stronger than their peers. Those who reached the second level of brute force supreme force would have even stronger explosive power, and their defense would also be a level higher. Those who had awakened the second level were the geniuses of the barbarians. As for the third level, brute force supreme force, it was already rare among the barbarians. Once these 3 levels were reached, they would basically be able to take the step of the king realm and even become a supreme king. As for the 4th level, no one had appeared in the barbarians for many years. Right now, after Arlo used the second level of brute force, the Xian armor on his body instantly thickened by a layer. Yang Wu's attack was actually unable to pierce through. In addition, the muscles on Arlo's body swelled by a lot. He looked taller and stronger, and the exposed veins could be seen continuously sending out brute force. He looked extremely valiant. This was the strength of the second level of strength. Yang Wu was also stunned. He really did not expect Arlo to be able to become stronger again. He could not help but exclaim in his heart, "The Xian armor has become thicker. Is this the strength of the barbarian's brute force? Little bastard, let's see what else you can do." Arlo laughed nastily. He did not care about Yang Wu's attack. He swung his ivory spear and fiercely counterattacked again. Celestial assault. Celestial overturn. It was as if Arlo had transformed into a giant elephant, and his attacks became more and more ruthless. It was as if a giant elephant was charging forward, and the momentum was enough to crush many old trees. It was also as if a giant elephant was turning over in the water, causing the river mud to splatter everywhere. The power of the spear was truly powerful. Wherever it went, rocks would turn into powder, trees would collapse, and the ground would crack, causing great damage. Yang Wu received the attack and was immediately beaten to the point of bleeding. The trident spear was completely out of his hands, as there was no way for him to block Arlo's abnormal strength. Yang Wu was shocked. He wanted to dodge Arlo's follow-up attack, but unfortunately, it was already too late. 2 spear wounds appeared on his body, and blood spurted out like a pillar. If he had not retreated fast enough, he would have been stabbed by the spear. Haha, let's see what else you can use to fight me now. Arlo laughed wildly with incomparable excitement. In his eyes, victory was already within reach. This guy's brute force is too powerful. My strength is no match for him. Yang Wu had to admit this fact in his heart. He was only in the realm of a top-notch warrior. To be able to fight a barbarian genius to this extent was already considered very powerful. Yang Wu had lost his trident spear, but it did not mean that he did not have a weapon. He still had an unsharpened iron saber and a broken whip, but he did not know how to use a saber or whip. It was not that he could not use them, so he could only use his palm to fight with Arlo and look for an opportunity to counterattack. Arlo was not a fool. Of course, he knew what Yang Wu was thinking. He would not give Yang Wu such an opportunity. His second force could only be maintained for a limited time, so he had to end the battle in the shortest time possible. Arlo blasted out an even more powerful spear move. The dense spear shadows had already sealed off Yang Wu's retreat, forcing Yang Wu to meet force with force. Celestial phenomenon mountain crash. Aurora turned into a barbarian elephant. With every step he took, the ground shook. The ivory spear in his hand blasted out a terrifying barbarian force that was 150 feet long. This kind of power could even completely explode a small mountain. Once this move was unleashed, Yang Wu could no longer conserve his strength. The power in the peach pit was frantically drawn out, and the dragon turtle sea turning technique was unleashed. The two forces collided, and it was like a dragon turtle against a celestial phenomenon. The profound qi exploded in all directions, turning everything into nothingness. The destructive force was truly terrifying. Mengu could not help but exclaim, "Good job, Arlo." Even a top-notch barbarian general like Mengu found it difficult to withstand Arlo's attack. He could not help but cheer for Arlo. Arlo's move could at least increase his chances of becoming the strongest warrior by 10%. Don't underestimate this 10% chance. If it was in the past, Mengu would not have thought that Arlo had such qualifications at all. He was very clear about the strength of the strongest geniuses in their clan. Yang Wu's dragon turtle sea turning technique blocked Arlo's attack, but he was also repelled by his opponent. There was a bloody hole in his lower abdomen. He looked extremely miserable. Arlo did not have it easy either. He was hit on the shoulder by Yang Wu's palm. The thick Xian armor was directly shattered, and the shoulder bone was shattered by Yang Wu. Arlo was forced to retreat more than 20 feet. Comparing the two's injuries, Yang Wu's was more fatal. If it were anyone else, they would have died on the spot. However, Yang Wu was still standing in the same place, and did not look like he had fallen at all. I didn't expect you to be just a little warrior and not a real general realm cultivator. In that case, I can't let you live. Arlo finally knew Yang Wu's level. The other party did not have a Xian armor to protect himself when facing his strongest attack. Only then did he realize that Yang Wu had not reached the general realm. This greatly shocked him, but at the same time, he was determined to kill him. He would not give Yang Wu any chance. Dragging his injured body, Arlo charged at Yang Wu with the ivory spear in one hand. In his eyes, Yang Wu would definitely have no room to resist. If he could still resist with such an injury, he might as well write his name upside down. When Arlo's attack was about to reach him, Yang Wu retreated with his injury. With every step he took back, his injury recovered a little. After retreating 7 steps in a row, the bowl-sized wound had completely stopped bleeding. He could hardly feel the pain. At this moment, he fought back. There are many things you don't expect, Yang Wu shouted with a ferocious look on his face. Then, he pulled out his iron saber from his back and simply slashed at Arlo. In an instant, Arlo immediately felt the smell of death. It was like when he accidentally fell into a stampeding elephant herd when he was a child and was about to be trampled to death by the elephant's legs. It made him feel terrified and desperate. The saber light, full of death, slashed down from the sky and went straight for his head. No! Chapter 104. The Blade of Death. Yang Wu had completely formed the Death Dao flower. Even though it was only a bud and had yet to fully mature, it was already incomparable to the original will of death. As soon as the blade was slashed out, the weeds within 100 feet withered, and the trees also lost more than half of their essence. The thick smell of death filled the area within a few feet. Aurora was within the range of 30 meters, and he had no way to resist the will of the path of death. His spiritual power completely collapsed, and Yang Wu's iron saber directly chopped off most of his head. All the barbarians were completely dumbfounded. They had always thought that Aurora would win, but in the next moment, he was actually beheaded by a young man from the Great Xia. It was simply hard for them to accept this fact. Aurora! Mengu was the first to recover from his shock. He roared and then ordered, "Chop this starred from the Great Xia in a meat paste and avenge Aurora." Under Mengu's order, nearly 400 barbarians launched an incomparably crazy attack. There were too many of them, and they formed a circle. In fact, only the people in the front row could attack Yang Wu, and the people behind could only follow suit. However, the momentum was really frightening. Ordinary people would be scared out of their wits, and it would be difficult for them to have any room to resist. Yang Wu was not one to be scared. He was not afraid, even when facing hundreds of prison slaves in the prison field. The momentum of these barbarians was several times, or even more than 10 times, but Yang Wu did not care at all. This was because he had entered the state of the path of death. In this state, there was only death. Kill! Yang Wu looked at all of this coldly. After shouting loudly, he raised his iron blade and charged forward. He did not know any blade techniques, but every slash of his blade would affect the surrounding situation. The mental state of the barbarians who were close to him was imperceptibly affected. Their movements became sluggish, and their expressions became fearful. The momentum from before was completely gone. Puffed, puffed. The iron blade was not sharpened, but under the concentration of power, it was still a mystical chi rainbow. Several heads were sent flying, and several corpses fell to the ground on the spot. The mounts that were rushing over were not any better. Under the pressure of the tyrannical mystical chi, they all knelt on the ground and screamed in fear. The other barbarians who were chasing after him were successively implicated. They were tripped by the mounts in front of them and were squeezed by those behind. Soon, it became a chaotic situation. Fortunately, they were well trained, and the ones at the back to follow. Otherwise, it would be even more chaotic. Yang Wu, on the other hand, had entered the shape of the path of death. His divine court's spiritual energy was also fully activated, allowing him to sense the situation clearly. His iron saber slashed left and right, cutting a barbarian's mount into 2 halves. Another barbarian's stomach was cut open, and the limbs of a Fergana horse were cut off by the saber. Every time a barbarian died, the death flower bud in Yang Wu's divine court would release an indescribable power. It absorbed the death aura and strengthened its energy, making Yang Wu's will to kill more and more resolute. These barbarians did not know what was going on. Once they got close to Yang Wu, they would lose half of their combat power. They could not cause much damage to Yang Wu. In a few blinks of an eye, dozens of barbarians were killed by Yang Wu along with their mounts. Even Mengu, who was at the back, was shocked by such a killing speed. How can this little bastard be so powerful? Could it be that he has some secret technique? Mengu ordered, "Don't get close to him. Shoot him to death." Many barbarians took out their bows and arrows and fired at Yang Wu. Some even threw out their weapons. Their goal was to kill Yang Wu at all costs. In addition, there were nearly 100 mounts that were being driven towards Yang Wu. Even if all of these mounts were to die, they wanted to completely exhaust Yang Wu here. Kill! 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 At this moment, Yang Wu's eyes were filled with a thick, killing intent. He did not know what fatigue was, as he continued his slaughter. Slash after slash, blood continued to splatter, instantly dyeing his clothes red. His eyes were filled with killing intent. This was a sign of chi deviation. Yang Wu was completely unaware. He thought that after activating the Tao of Death, he could use his control to increase his battle prowess and kill people. However, his cultivation level was too low. There was no way he could fully control the power of the Tao of Death. Mengu's method of attack was still effective. Although Yang Wu's reflexes were astonishing, there was no way he could withstand wave after wave of fierce attacks from the opponent. His body was hit by 3 arrows, each of which pierced into his bones. It was a miserable sight. Yang Wu did not feel any pain. His eyes were completely red with anger. He charged toward the barbarians in all directions, killing them in a frenzy. The Tao of Death was too terrifying. As Yang Wu's killing intent grew stronger, more and more people and mounts died around him. The influence of the Tao of Death grew stronger. It had expanded from the original range of 10 feet to 15 feet. There was no one who could remain unaffected within this range. I don't believe that this brat can't be killed. One of the advanced barbarian generals was completely enraged. He rode on a bull and charged towards Yang Wu. He was determined to cut Yang Wu off his horse. The barbarian general waved the meteor hammer in his hand and kept swinging it in circles. Soon, he was within 10 feet of Yang Wu. His ferocious aura quickly disappeared like a deflated balloon. What replaced it was a look of fear. At this moment, Yang Wu's saber was already slashing toward him. A large head was cut in half. The blood was a ghastly sight. The remaining half of the barbarians felt a chill run down their spine. They already felt that this young man from Great Xia was very powerful, but they did not expect him to be this powerful. Mengu clenched his teeth and said to the 2 top-notch barbarian generals beside him, "You 2 go as well. If we don't kill him, we won't have a good time when we return to the tribe." The 2 top-notch barbarian generals nodded and split up, charging toward Yang Wu from 2 different directions. Yang Wu was still killing the barbarians who were charging toward him. These barbarians formed a formation and attacked together. It was a pity that once they got close to him, they would lose their minds and would not be able to unleash their strongest battle prowess. Before the martial will, it was impossible to resist its influence without an equally strong will. As Yang Wu killed his way through, the barbarians and their mounts died one after another. The 2 top-notch barbarian generals who had gotten close wanted to launch a sneak attack on Yang Wu. Unfortunately, the moment they entered Yang Wu's area of influence, they were overwhelmed by the fear of death. This caused their movements to become sluggish and stiff, and even the attacks they were about to launch had shrunk. Fortunately, Yang Wu's target was not them, which gave them a short time to regain their senses. They bit the tip of their tongues at the same time, causing themselves so much pain that they would no longer be affected by the will of death. After all, Yang Wu's path of death had yet to truly blossom, and its influence was not that strong. Furthermore, Yang Wu's realm was also relatively low, which was why he was not able to directly torture them to death. Scorching sun, illumination, roar of 1,000 beasts. One of the barbarians swung out his huge sword, and his brute force turned into the light of the sun. The raging firepower seemed to be real, and the sword light that filled the sky pierced toward Yang Wu's vital points. The other barbarian did not use any weapons. His brute force had reached the pinnacle of the first tier, and he turned into the king of all beasts, roaring in unison. That world-shaking aura was extremely terrifying. These 2 barbarians were already one of the strongest barbarians in this team. They attacked with all their might, wanting to get rid of Yang Wu. If the 2 of them still can't get rid of this little b** starred, then we'll be in trouble. Mengu clenched his fists and thought to himself nervously. After a pause, he muttered to himself, "That kid can't be the disciple of the King of Death, can he? The flowers and plants around him have all withered. Even my clan's Lang could not resist that terrifying will. If that's the case, then we can't let him live." 2 powerful moves were aimed at Yang Wu at the same time. Although Yang Wu was in a berserk state, his reaction was not slow at all. He knew the situation around him like the back of his hand. When the barbarians' attacks were about to land on him, he turned around and directly met the barbarians' attacks head-on. His saber skills were messy and disorderly, and he was just countering the attacks as they came. However, his advantage was that the power of the Tao of Death had reached the level of a top general realm expert, which was not inferior to their fighting strength at all. In fact, he was even more powerful. Otherwise, how could Yang Wu's fighting strength be so strong? As the three of them fought, one barbarian's arm was cut off, another barbarian's chest and abdomen were slashed open, while Yang Wu's abdomen was pierced through by a huge sword. His shoulders were even shattered by a barbarian's attack. He was completely covered in blood and fell heavily to the ground. Good. Mengu was overjoyed. Even if his men were seriously injured, he still felt that Yang Wu would definitely die this time. He could not help but shout out loud. The two barbarians were seriously injured, and it was impossible for them to fight against Yang Wu. They also felt that Yang Wu was dead, so they stayed where they were to treat their wounds. The other barbarians also quickly gathered around, ready to save the two barbarian generals and confirm whether Yang Wu was really dead. How could Yang Wu die so easily? After he swallowed the immortal peach core, he already possessed an undying body. His life force was unimaginably tenacious. He lay on the ground, and the remaining energy in his dantian protected his organs, nourishing the injured areas. However, his injuries were too severe, and it was basically impossible for him to recover in a short period of time. Moreover, he was close to overdrawing his energy, so he needed time to recover. However, Yang Wu was different from before. After killing so many people, the Death Tao flower in the Divine Court was nourished by a large amount of the will of death. The flower bud grew slightly larger. It did not seem obvious, but it greatly increased his will of death. Furthermore, he was now facing the danger of death, so the effect of the Death Tao flower was even more obvious. If he wanted to comprehend the way of death, how could he do it without facing death? In an instant, Yang Wu's way of death completely erupted, spreading to the surroundings. The two barbarian generals near him instantly felt that they were dead. The barbarians who had approached also fell to the ground one by one. Mengu, who had not come close, was so scared that his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. What's going on? Mengu cried out in panic. Chapter 105. Yang Wu was already heavily injured and couldn't move at all. However, no one could stop the intense will of death that erupted from his Death Tao flower. Every martial path possessed extraordinary abilities. The path of death could naturally cause any life to enter a state of death. However, the requirements to reach this stage were extremely harsh. Yang Wu had obtained a strand of the will of death from the battle skill steel left behind by the battle skill monarch of death. The will that had been purified by the peach seed was extremely pure. It was completely different from the brand of death that Su Xiaoqiang had received. Because of this, after Yang Wu's Death Tao flower released an intense will of death, the air of death within 20 feet of him seemed to be filled with a corrosive aura of death. Not only that, but the will of death continued to spread outwards. From 20 feet to 30 feet, the barbarians and their mounts collapsed one after another. Only Mengu was unaffected by the will of death because he immediately leapt onto the large eagle and flew off the ground. The path of death has reappeared. This kid really is the successor of the battle monarch of death. I need to immediately notify the kings of the tribe to come over. Otherwise, once he controls the path of death, our tribe will have to face another battle monarch of death. This isn't good for our tribe. Mengu frowned and muttered to himself. He no longer paid any attention to his fallen companions and wanted to leave this place first. Unfortunately, just as he was about to fly away, a flash of sword light suddenly appeared. It was like a bolt of lightning descending from the heavens, striking down on his head. Puffed. Mengu and his large eagle didn't show any fear before death. They were completely cleaved in half, and blood rained down like rain. At some point, a masked woman in black had appeared in the sky. She had a pair of black, profound wings that flickered on her body. She was like a black angel that had descended from the heavens. She was so enchanting. Who else could this woman in black be but the Rose of Death? She was also the woman that Yang Wu had saved. She was also the one who had thrown Yang Wu here. This place belonged to the border of the barbarian race and was far from the barbarian army. The Rose of Death originally wanted to kill Yang Wu. Who told Yang Wu to see her naked body? Even if he was her savior, she didn't want to let him go. In the end, she wasn't cold-blooded to that extent. Instead, she threw Yang Wu to the barbarian army and borrowed their blade to kill Yang Wu. However, the barbarian army disappointed her. Yang Wu wasn't killed. Instead, they were all slaughtered by Yang Wu. The Rose of Death only coldly looked at Yang Wu, who was bursting with the will of death. Her beautiful eyes were filled with a complicated expression. No one knew what she was thinking. After a while, she murmured, "If you don't die even after all this, then we'll forget about what happened between us." The Rose of Death came quickly and left quickly. She didn't care about Yang Wu's life at all. Her temperament was unusually cold. Yang Wu couldn't control the power of the Death Dao flower. If this continued, he would definitely die under the power of his own Death Dao flower. He would become a person who died from the backlash of his own martial arts. This situation was similar to the Rose of Death's situation back then. However, the Rose of Death wasn't as lucky as Yang Wu to condense the Death Dao flower. Their realms were far apart, but in terms of the power of the Dao of Death, Yang Wu's Dao of Death was purer and more terrifying. Yang Wu absorbed the Rose of Death brand of death to condense the Death Dao flower. The brand of death's power was purified by the peach core, Dantian. It wasn't the original brand of death's power at all. It was a kind of true Dao of Death. The more people Yang Wu killed, the stronger the Dao of Death would become. Unfortunately, his realm was too low and he couldn't control the power of the Dao of Death. If this continued, he would die without a doubt. At this moment, the other flower bud of Yang Wu's divine court began to unleash its power. It was devouring the power of the Death Dao flower. The Death Dao flower was obviously unwilling to be disturbed by an external power. It wanted to devour the other flower bud. The power of the two flower buds began to clash. The stronger one would be able to gain the upper hand and devour the other in the end. After all, the Death Dao flower was condensed from an external power, while the divine court flower had been condensed when Yang Wu had broken through. It was the consciousness that had first grown in the divine court. It was the true ruler here. As the two flower buds clashed, the divine court flower gradually gained the upper hand. The divine court flower bud's power flowed directly to the peach core's Dantian. The meridian breakthrough was like a bridge that connected them. The peach core's power was gradually drained away by the meridian breakthrough. The divine court flower bud grew stronger and finally suppressed the Death Dao flower's power. In the end, it was unable to devour the Death Dao flower completely. It only managed to make it completely withdraw, no longer daring to provoke the divine court flower bud. However, if it grew stronger again one day, it would definitely try to devour the divine court flower bud again and use that to increase its own power. As the will of death returned to the Death Dao flower bud, the will of death around Yang Wu completely vanished. He was lying on the ground on his last breath. Several arrows were stuck in his body, and he was heavily injured. The bloodstains were so shocking that anyone who saw him would think he was dead without a doubt. There were also piles of barbarian and steed corpses in the surroundings. It was basically a place filled with corpses. After the battle, just now, the spirit demons and wild beasts nearby didn't dare to go far. They would wait at least half a day or even a day before they dared to approach this place. It was this bit of free time that gave Yang Wu a chance to live. Otherwise, even a wild beast would be able to take his life. At this moment, the black steel bear finally arrived with little hay on its back. It was true that the black steel bear was a top-tier spirit beast, but it had encountered quite a bit of trouble along the way. If it wasn't for little hay protecting it along the way, it probably would have died long ago. Even so, the black steel bear still encountered attacks from spirit demons that weren't intimidated by little hay. Its body was quite injured, and after going through so much trouble along the way, it was almost dead. After Little Hay sensed Yang Wu's presence, it anxiously jumped down from the black steel bear and sent a message to the black steel bear. "Stay here and guard this area." Little Hay was very fast. In a few leaps, It flew past the corpses of the barbarians and quickly arrived at the place where Yang Wu was lying. When it saw Yang Wu's condition, it couldn't help but stick out its tongue and exclaim, "Woof woof, this brat's injuries are really bad." Little Hay first used its paw to check Yang Wu's aura, then spat out a stalk of black Ganoderma. It didn't let Yang Wu waste the entire stalk of black Ganoderma. Instead, it cut off a small piece of it. Little Hay used its front paw to open Yang Wu's mouth and use its mouth to bite the black Ganoderma and feed it to Yang Wu. This immortal emperor's first kiss is gone again. Little Hay thought unhappily in its heart. This wasn't the first time Little Hay had done something like this. Back then, it had also fed Yang Wu the peach pit in the same way. When the black Ganoderma entered Yang Wu's mouth, Yang Wu's weak willpower made him open his eyes. He saw Little Hay's face leaning against him, and its mouth seemed to be blocking his mouth. His eyes rolled back, and he fainted again. Little Hay let go of Yang Wu and kept sticking its tongue out. It had a look of extreme disgust on its face as it muttered to itself, "If this immortal emperor's powers were still here, I would only need to blow a gust of immortal chi to heal this brat. Why would I waste this immortal emperor's first kiss? How disgusting." After Yang Wu obtained a small piece of the black Ganoderma meat and swallowed it, his body finally regained some new strength. The peach pit was like a hungry wolf that had been hungry for a long time, and it quickly devoured the black Ganoderma meat. The black Ganoderma was a low-grade spirit medicine, and its medicinal effects were many times stronger than those of the old herbs. Even if it was only a small piece, it was enough to restore Yang Wu's strength by a large margin. Yang Wu originally had an immortal body, and after receiving this energy, his injuries naturally healed faster. Before long, he regained some of his willpower. Then, he began to circulate the 9 mystic arts to speed up the absorption of the black Ganoderma's energy, as well as the energy around him, in order to heal his injuries as soon as possible. Little Hay didn't idle around. It quickly set up an array around the area, isolating this place from the outside world. Otherwise, the smell of blood here would attract spirit demons, wild beasts, and even the barbarians. When that time came, it would be difficult for it and the black steel bear to deal with them, and it would also affect Yang Wu's recovery. Soon, night fell, and soon the sun rose. It wasn't until noon that Yang Wu slowly woke up. "Little Hay, give me back my first kiss." After Yang Wu opened his eyes, the first thing he said was an angry roar. Yang Wu was very sullen and sad. He actually saw Little Hay take away his first kiss. If he could endure this, what else could he endure? "Hey, only you are allowed to have your first kiss, but not me. This immortal emperor kissed a fairy 800 years ago, and the first person I kissed in this world is you, brat. That should be enough." Little Hay said in a daze, "You little pervert dog, you eat both men and women." Yang Wu spat out a mouthful of saliva and said in a tearless voice, "Brat, don't be greedy. If it wasn't to save you, would I have to give you my first kiss time and time again? I'm already being generous by not asking you to compensate me for my emotional distress." Little Hay said righteously, "What do you mean by time and time again? You've kissed me before? If I hadn't kissed you, how could I have fed you a peach pit? You're so smart. I don't want to live anymore." No matter how depressed Yang Wu was, he did not dwell on this matter. He looked at his appearance, tore a piece of cloth from his body, and bit it in his mouth. Then he grabbed the arrow and quickly pulled it out of his body. Ugh! Yang Wu was immortal, but his body still hurt. The moment he pulled out the arrow, he gritted his teeth and let out a muffled groan. Cold sweat flowed down his forehead. While he was still breathing, he pulled out a few arrows from his body. Then, he quickly circulated his energy to heal the pain. It's worth it to exchange so many barbarians' heads for a body full of injuries. Yang Wu took a deep breath and looked at the corpses around him. He paused for a moment, then looked at Little Hay and sent out his divine sense. "Little Hay, is there any way to speed up the expansion of the universal space?" Chapter 106. With so many barbarian heads in front of him, it wouldn't be easy for Yang Wu to bring them all back. He needed to expand his universal space. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worth it to waste these good heads. Although Little Hay might have the ability to do so, this fellow wasn't willing to help him collect the heads, so he could only do it himself. Kid, don't be delusional. If you want to expand your universal space, you have to raise your cultivation level. Only then can you expand it with your own strength. It's already quite good that you can condense a universal space with your current level of strength. Don't be so ambitious. Little Hay said seriously. Little Hay, you're the mighty celestial emperor who reigns supreme in the heavens and earth. Can't you do anything to expand a mere universal space? Yangwu couldn't help but boast to Little Hay. He knew how amazing Little Hay was. It definitely had some tricks up its sleeve. It was just that he hadn't squeezed them out yet. Sure enough, Little Hay raised its head proudly when it heard Yang Wu's boasting. It very naturally accepted Yang Wu's words and said, Kid, you really know how to talk. Using the phrase reign supreme in the heavens and earth to describe yourself as a celestial emperor does sound a little domineering. Then this small matter shouldn't be too difficult for you, right? Yang Wu asked again. Since you're so sincere in wanting to expand your universal space, then I'll think of a way, Little Hay replied. It paced back and forth on the spot. After pondering for a while, it raised its head and said, There is a way, but I don't know if you'll be able to endure it. You saw my injuries just now. I've already endured it, so what's there to be unable to endure? Yang Wu patted his chest and said, All right, the best way to expand your universal space is to increase your strength. Naturally, you'll be able to expand the size of your universal space. The other way is to force your potential to the limit and completely forge yourself into the most powerful martial body. This will also greatly expand your universal space, Little Hay said seriously. No problem. I've already expanded it a little some time ago. It'll be even better if I can expand it a little more now. I'm not greedy. Yang Wu nodded. How long has it been since you formed? You've expanded again? Little Hay rolled her eyes and said, You're not greedy? Do you think I won't summon a bolt of lightning to strike you to death? All right, stop wasting time. Hurry up and teach me how to expand. I still need to collect these heads, Yang Wu urged. We can't rush this matter. We still need some common herbs. We'll need at least 3 more days, Little Hay replied. So long? What are we going to do with these heads? Yang Wu asked with a frown. Just leave it here. I've set up an illusion formation to isolate this place. Even an ordinary king wouldn't be able to discover it, Little Hay said calmly. That's good. I'll continue to recover. Yang Wu was very assured of Little Hay's safety. He closed his eyes again to recuperate. This time he did not sit down. Instead, he stood up and used the dragon turtle water suppression stance to absorb energy from the outside world. This would be even faster. As for Little Hay, it left the place by itself. It quickly gathered all sorts of old herbs in the ancient forest. Little Hay was born with an astonishing spiritual sense, and its origins were extraordinary. Some inconspicuous herbs were treasures in its eyes. It could turn something rotten into something magical and waste into treasure. Another day passed, and Yang Wu's body finally fully recovered. He had recovered half of the peach core's energy. On the second day, his energy had completely recovered to its peak. On the third day, he was able to break through a few more acupoints, but he forcefully suppressed it. He used this energy to cleanse every corner of his body over and over again, causing his body to reach the most perfect state. During these 3 days, he sensed the situation in his divine court. He clearly discovered the situation with the Tao flower of death and the divine court flower bud. At the same time, he was thinking about how to deal with it and how to maintain his consciousness after activating the Tao flower of death. He did not want to become a crazed, murderous maniac again. How can I control this energy with ease? Yang Wu constantly asked himself. In the end, he tried a few times consecutively. He controlled the Tao flower of death bit by bit. This way, everything was still within his control. Once he fully activated the Tao flower of death, it would be difficult to suppress it. The conclusion he reached was to use the Tao flower of death cautiously. Once he strengthened himself and was able to suppress it with the divine court flower, he would be able to completely transform it into his own energy to use. On this day, Little Hay finally returned. Yang Wu looked at its exhausted face and could not help but feel sorry for it. Little Hay, if you're tired, just rest for now. I'm not tired at all. I'm just a little sleepy. Let me sleep. With that, Little Hay collapsed to the ground and fell asleep. Yang Wu went up to take a closer look at its body. He discovered that its skinny body was covered in quite a bit of blood. He did not know whether it was its blood or the blood of other spiritual beasts. He could not help but gently sigh inside. Little Hay, you'll be my savior for the rest of my life. If there's anything you need in the future, even if it's my life, I'll definitely do it. The night passed uneventfully. Yang Wu did not rest. Instead, he practiced the one-inch punch, mountain-crushing palm, and flying legs several times. He was actually on the verge of major accomplishment. This was all thanks to the all-out battle a few days ago. It had greatly improved Yang Wu's combat awareness. The Divine Core Flower Bud was also increasing Yang Wu's comprehension ability. It would not be long before these 3 battle techniques reached major accomplishment. Apart from this, Yang Wu was also preparing to practice the Galloping Horse Saber technique. The metal saber on his back was not sharp, but it was extremely hard. It could even withstand a general weapons attack. This was proof that it was extraordinary. Cultivating this saber technique was the best choice for him. As for the 3-pronged spear that he had picked up, it was too damaged. He temporarily put it aside and did not pay any attention to it. The Galloping Horse Saber technique was a low-level general technique. Its main offensive characteristics were very obvious. It belonged to the category of saber techniques used in chaotic battles. The more chaotic the battlefield, the more effective this saber technique would be. Yang Wu first practiced the basic movements. His mind constantly recalled the great battle a few days ago. Then, he used the Galloping Horse Saber technique to attack. In a short 2 hours, he had already memorized the movements of the saber technique. As long as he practiced more, it would not be difficult for him to reach the microscopic realm. At this moment, Little Hay flipped over and climbed up from the ground. She was full of energy again. She even said disdainfully to Yang Wu, "With your skill level, you can't even compare to a 3-year-old." Yang Wu ignored Little Hay's words. Instead, he asked, "Hurry up and teach me how to strengthen my Qian Kuan space after you've rested. Don't take my words lightly." A true genius basically only needs to look at the chance of a battle technique once to understand it. They only need to practice it once or twice to master it. In just a few days, they'll be able to bring the battle technique to its most perfect state. Little Hay said faintly. Yang Wu said in disbelief, "How can there be such a genius in the world? Summerbug is talking about ice." Little Hay said with a roll of her eyes. Yang Wu was very hurt. He felt that his cultivation talent was already quite good, especially when he had reached the level of a top-notch warrior in less than 3 months. This kind of cultivation speed was not something that could be found even in the royal city. Yet, Little Hay had actually given him such a huge blow. He really could not accept this. Little Hay could see that Yang Wu was dissatisfied, so she continued to say, "Every battle technique has its own unique characteristics. If you cultivate according to its characteristics, you will definitely not go wrong." Previously, that old man in the mountain prison had some insights, but in my opinion, as long as you use your divine sense to comprehend and cultivate any battle technique, you will be able to achieve twice the results. It is not like you just need to cultivate and comprehend it. That is what a mediocre person would do. Use one's divine sense to comprehend and cultivate, Yang Wu said with a look of surprise. He had never thought of such a method before. Of course. Otherwise, how could those martial wills be tempered and comprehended? Little Hay replied. Yang Wu did not fully understand what Little Hay meant. However, Little Hay did not give him any time to think it through. She continued, "This celestial emperor has already prepared all the medicinal ingredients to begin tempering your extreme martial body. If you can withstand it, there is hope that your Qinkuan space will be improved further, and your martial body will also become more complete." After saying this, she opened her mouth and spat out a large green cauldron. An ancient aura spread out from it, causing even Yang Wu to feel a sense of respect. This cauldron had 2 handles and 3 legs. Clouds and mist were coming out of the mouth of the cauldron, and the smell of medicinal herbs wafted through the air. The body of the cauldron was green and gray, and there were many ancient patterns on it. They looked like pictures of various auspicious beasts, or immortals crossing the sea, or mountains and rivers, or ancient forests, or strange flowers and herbs. They looked extremely complicated and profound. Good heavens, what kind of cauldron is this? It looks very ancient, Yang Wu exclaimed in surprise. Humph, this is a celestial cauldron. Its origins are astonishing. If I tell you, you'll be scared to death, Little Hayes said with a cold snort. Since you've already taken it out, what's there to hide? This is the Shen Immortal Cauldron. It can refine all medicinal herbs into celestial pills. It is one of the top 3 celestial cauldrons. The Shen Immortal Cauldron sounds very impressive. Summer bug. Little Hay felt that Yang Wu was too ignorant and didn't have time to waste on him. He spat out a large pile of old herbs and placed them all into the Shen Immortal Cauldron. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of spring water into the cauldron. Yang Wu couldn't help but praise in his heart. Little Hay is a true celestial hound. In the next moment, Little Hay spat out a flame, causing the spring water in the cauldron to boil. The old herbs immediately began to emit an extremely strong medicinal smell. A divine intent sounded in Yang Wu's ears. Jump into the cauldron. What? Yang Wu exclaimed in shock. I told you to jump into the cauldron, Little Hay emphasized again. Yang Wu gulped and said, This cauldron is filled with boiling water. I'll be cooked if I go in. Hee, didn't you want to expand the yin-yang space? Now is your chance. Start digging into your body's limits. If you can endure it, then you'll benefit greatly from it. If you can't, then I'll steam you into a human flesh pill, Little Hay said in a sinister voice. Yang Wu hesitated for a moment. Then he thought about all the merit points in the surrounding area. He gritted his teeth and jumped into the cauldron. Chapter 107. The medicinal liquid in the immortal cauldron was boiling hot. Yang Wu jumped in like this, and it was as if he had fallen into a pot of oil. He immediately screamed in pain. Yang Wu wanted to jump out of the cauldron immediately, but Little Hay had already transmitted a message to him. Kid, if you want to expand your Qian Kuan space, you have to use the mystic formula to endure it. Damn it, I'm going all out. Yang Wu gritted his teeth and roared. He started to use the supreme 9 mystic formula and began to endure the fate of his body being cooked. He stayed in the cauldron and did not come out. The temperature of the medicinal liquid was really too high. Yang Wu felt that his body, which had been tempered by the companion wolf blood crystal, was about to be cooked. It was really too uncomfortable. Fortunately, Yang Wu had been injured in battle time and time again. His ability to endure was no longer comparable to an ordinary person's. He endured it. His whole body was trembling, sweat was pouring down like crazy, and blood was seeping out his mouth. Fortunately, after he channeled the supreme 9 profound arts, the medicinal effect in the medicinal cauldron immediately seeped into his skin and flesh. Just when he thought his body would feel better, he discovered that the medicinal effect contained an extremely stimulating effect, instantly causing him to scream out in pain once again as if he wanted to die. This extremely tragic cry almost spread over a radius of several miles. Yang Wu did not know how long he screamed for, but his voice gradually quieted down. The boiling water in the cauldron was no longer boiling, and the medicinal effect had almost disappeared completely. Yang Wu did not come out of the cauldron. Instead, he continued to stay in a daze with his eyes closed. The remaining power of the cauldron was still being absorbed by him with the dragon turtle water suppression stance. Blackie had been observing the whole time. When it discovered that Yang Wu had withstood it, it couldn't help but lightly praise. He actually finished absorbing this cauldron of body-tempering liquid within 2 hours. It seems that the power of the supreme 9 mysteries tactics is much stronger than those high-grade celestial tactics. If he can collect the other 8 types of chi essences, wouldn't this brat immediately become an immortal? The origin of the supreme 9 mysteries tactics was not ordinary. Even Little Black was not sure which immortal celestial tactics it came from. It only passed it to Yang Wu because it wanted to test how powerful it was. After Yang Wu absorbed the mystic essence, the effects of the supreme 9 mystic formula did not seem to be so obvious. However, after Yang Wu condensed the flower of the divine court, and with the current speed of absorption, Little Hay realized that she could not underestimate the supreme 9 mystic formula. If she could collect the other types of mystic essence and display the strongest version of the supreme 9 mystic formula, what kind of scene would that be? Right now, Yang Wu felt better than ever before, just like when he had absorbed the prenatal mysterious essence chi. His muscles had been reorganized, his limbs had been strengthened, and his internal organs had been stimulated. His potential had been raised, and his vitality had become more vigorous. His 12 standard meridians and 4 extraordinary meridians had more than doubled in size. The opened acupoints could hold more power, and the power they could gather was more powerful. It was as if his marrow and meridians had been cleansed. As for his flower of the heavens court, it had also been nourished. It seemed to have grown a little stronger, and his mental strength had become more extraordinary. This was a sublimation of vitality. It was a qualitative leap. The human body was a divine treasure. The more it was opened, the stronger the divine power. Little Hay's cauldron of medicinal power helped Yang Wu open up more entrances to the divine treasure. It could open up the divine treasure to its limits. In addition, Yang Wu's flesh seemed to have been tempered once again. It looked as tender and smooth as a baby's, but in reality, it was incomparably tough. It could definitely be said that his body was invulnerable. Yang Wu did not charge out of the cauldron. Instead, he wanted to completely digest the medicinal power. From time to time, there would be strange explosions in his body. The power in his meridians was like a flood, and many of his acupoints flickered like stars. They converged like rainbows, creating a strange scene. When Yang Wu woke up, his eyes were like sharp blades, piercing through the area of 300 meters in front of him. Many small things could be clearly seen. He could also clearly hear the low breathing of wild beasts in the distance. His vision and hearing had become extraordinarily different. Yang Wu immediately jumped out of the cauldron. Without thinking, he performed a set of 1-inch punch on the spot. Very quickly, he discovered that he had directly mastered the fist technique to the stage of great accomplishment. Immediately after, he switched to mountain collapsing palm, and, similarly, it easily reached the stage of great accomplishment. When he practiced scud kick, he was stuck at the level of great accomplishment. However, he had also touched the feeling of great accomplishment. He believed that it would not be long before he would be able to enter the stage of great accomplishment. Haha, after my body has become stronger, my ability to control my moves has also become stronger. Yang Wu laughed very happily. Brat, how much has your universe space expanded? Little Hay very naturally jumped onto Yang Wu's shoulder and asked. Yang Wu scratched the back of his head and laughed dryly. Damn, I forgot about that. Let me see. Yang Wu looked inside his body and discovered that every part of his body had become extraordinarily different. As for his universe space, it had directly expanded to the size of 1 square meter. Clearly, under this stimulation, he had indeed gained some benefits. However, Yang Wu said with a drooping face, it's only a little bigger. It's just 1 square meter. Isn't it expanding too slowly? Damn, you brat. Don't be greedy, okay? For someone like you who hasn't even completed the entry stage, to have a universe space is already quite good. Little Hay had originally wanted to say quite good, but she was afraid that Yang Wu would be too complacent, so she quickly changed her words. Yang Wu muttered, no, I can still expand a little. Don't disturb me first. After saying that, Yang Wu sat down cross-legged and began to channel the power in his peach core dantian and the spiritual power in his divine court, once again expanding the walls of his universe space. Right now, Yang Wu had already opened up 335 acupoints and was not far from completing 365 acupoints. He was also a top-notch existence in the realm of top-notch warriors. His strength had increased by a lot compared to before. After all, the power gathered in many of his acupoints had doubled, and the power in his peach core dantian was also more abundant and powerful. His spiritual power was also stronger, so he should be able to expand his universe space. Sure enough, when he merged his spiritual power and the power in his dantian to form a new power, he expanded the universe space in his body once again. This time, the universe space directly doubled in size, reaching the size of 2 square meters. "Brat, how is it? How much more can it expand?" Little Hay asked. Its eyes were filled with a tyrannical look. It did not believe that Yang Wu could expand the universe space at all. To be able to create a universe space in one's own body, that was the ability of immortals. Yang Wu was just a small mortal, and it was already good enough for him to have a universe space. To be greedy, it was a kind of immoral behavior in its eyes. Yang Wu smiled bitterly and said, "It's only doubled in size, reaching the size of 2 square meters. What? You brat, don't lie to me." Little Hay cried out in surprise. "What's the point of lying to you? There are so many good heads here, and I still can't collect them all," Yang Wu said with a shrug. Little Hay stared intently at Yang Wu. When it discovered that he did not seem to be lying, it immediately cursed in its mind. Is this brat really a freak? Yang Wu looked at Little Hay and rubbed his hands together as he said, "Little Hay, why don't you do me a favor and collect all of these heads for me? I'll definitely report to you when I get back." This time, Little Hay surprisingly did not object. Instead, it nodded and said, "All right, seeing that you've done well, I'll collect them all." After a pause, it added, "The extreme tempering has only just begun. There are still 6 more rounds of such tempering to go through. Once you've endured all of them, you'll be almost done." "What? 6 more rounds?" Yang Wu cried out in surprise. He really did not want to experience that feeling of wanting to live or die again. "Brat, don't take it for granted. If others ask me to temper them, I won't even be willing," Little Hay said proudly. Then it began to collect the heads of the barbarians here on behalf of Yang Wu. Yang Wu could only accept his fate. At the same time, he hoped that the next round would come sooner. He knew very well that Little Hay's extreme tempering was really amazing. He wanted to become stronger faster, so it was a little suffering. After that, Yang Wu finally found the time to collect the dead's wealth. The ground was littered with corpses, and every barbarian would more or less have some items on them. These were the wealth of the dead. Yang Wu did not need to collect the items from the corpses one by one. He had already instructed the Black Steel Bear to do this. The Black Steel Bear had already collected a pile of items to the side, and Yang Wu was only responsible for collecting them. Yang Wu first looked at the pile of weapons, but he did not have much interest in them. Right now, he could not even collect the heads. These weapons were quite valuable, but he had to be able to take them with him. However, he would not let go of Aurora's ivory spear. There was also the golden silk armor that he had taken off him. This was a king armor that could save his life. He immediately put on the golden silk armor and said, "This time, I have a king armor that can save my life. It should be much safer. This saber looks pretty good. The name Python Saber also sounds nice. I'll take it. Hey, there's a bullhorn bow here. It looks even better than my snakeskin bow. I can't miss it. The red feather sword should be of good quality. I'll need it when I practice the 12 swords of wind chasing. I'll keep it." Yang Wu picked out a dozen or so high-quality weapons and put them away. Some were for his own use, and some were for backup. As for the others, he could not take them with him, and he did not want to ask Little Hay to help him. He planned to let them rot here. "If you don't want any of these, I'll help you fuse them into the trident spear," Little Hay said from Yang Wu's shoulder. "The trident spear is already rotten. How can it still be used?" Yang Wu asked, puzzled. "The trident spear is not a good weapon, but it's enough for you right now," Little Hay replied. Then it jumped down from Yang Wu's shoulder and spat out a mouthful of fire. It melted a large pile of weapons in front of it. Little Hay's fire was not ordinary. It looked small, but its firepower was incredible. The weapons melted immediately upon contact. "Throw your trident spear to me," Little Hay shouted at Yang Wu. Yang Wu did not say anything and threw the trident spear to Little Hay. When the trident spear came into contact with Little Hay's fire, it finally revealed its true appearance. Yang Wu was stunned. Chapter 108. Ever since Yang Wu obtained the trident spear, he had examined it many times, but he could not find anything special about it. Other than the fact that it was easy to use, he really did not know what was so special about it. Now, under the burning of Little Hay's flames, the surface of the trident spear had completely cracked, as if a thick layer of leather had been taken off, revealing its true appearance. Rays of shining light pierced through the sky, as if dragons were soaring into the sky, appearing extremely dazzling. A strange aura spread out, and Yang Wu saw it clearly. His mouth was wide open, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Is this really the trident spear? Yang Wu murmured in astonishment. This was clearly a genuine royal armament. It was just that someone had used some sort of method to disguise it, thus revealing its true appearance. Yang Wu's face bloomed with a smile. A royal weapon had extraordinary significance. It was a weapon that was priceless. With it, killing a general realm expert would be as easy as playing with a toy, and it would not take much effort. But in the next moment, his face darkened. "Little Hay, what are you doing? Don't burn my royal weapon." Unfortunately, his shout was too late. The royal weapon melted instantly after coming into contact with Little Hay's flames. There was no suspense at all. Yang Wu wailed bitterly. "Little Hay, you're killing me. Short-sighted brat. Open your eyes wide and take a look." After Little Hay said disdainfully, it controlled the refined weapon materials to fuse together. Then, a hammer appeared in its mouth, and under the control of its divine sense, it began to hammer these materials together. This scene caused Yang Wu to stare with his eyes wide open. He didn't know what to think. Clang, clang, clang. Every time the hammer fell, it would make an extremely crisp sound. Moreover, there were wisps of inexplicable light flashing, as if ancient ancestors were constantly forging weapons. Although it was not very obvious, Yang Wu, who was right in front of him, could still vaguely see it. He could not help but exclaim in his heart, "Is this another celestial item with an extraordinary origin?" After the 36 hammers fell, a new shape of the trident spear appeared. Little Hay first spat out a stream of flames to melt the body of the trident spear. Then it spat out a stream of water, and the red trident spear began to emit dense, cooling steam. Soon, a new trident spear appeared in front of Yang Wu. After doing all this, Little Hay lay weakly on the ground with its tongue hanging out. It was obvious that it had exhausted a lot of energy. Yang Wu walked over and picked up the trident spear. He found that this trident spear was surprisingly heavy, but the body of the trident spear was very thin and smooth. It was as smooth as jade, and it occasionally flashed with light. It felt very good to the touch. The tip of the trident spear was made with 2 blades, and it was smooth and sharp. It was like the tip of a sharp knife. Once it was stabbed, it would definitely bleed. Yang Wu gently stroked the new trident spear and praised, "What a great trident spear! It's best to smear some blood on it to make it recognize you as its master. Only then will it be easier to play with it," Little Hay reminded him. After a pause, it added, "I need to rest." Then it lay on the ground and dozed off. It was obvious that it was exhausted. Yang Wu followed Little Hay's instructions and dripped some blood on the trident spear. The trident spear miraculously absorbed the blood, and Yang Wu felt a very weak connection with the trident spear. "It seems that I have to give you a new name. I'll just call you the double-blade triple dragon spear," Yang Wu said without hesitation. He hoped that this trident spear would be able to transform into a dragon with him. The double-blade triple dragon spear flashed with light, as if it was responding to him. It seemed to have an extraordinary aura. Yang Wu held the double-blade triple dragon spear and began to move. He used the torrential storm spear technique, and it was unbelievably perfect. The power of the technique was even more powerful. After that, Yang Wu carried the double-blade triple dragon spear on his back, and once again counted the other dead people's belongings. He obtained a few additional combat skills, which were unique to the barbarian tribe. These martial skills were all stored in the Chinquin space. He would slowly study them when he had time to see if they were useful. Later, Yang Wu found dozens of low-grade Xian spirit crystals and some gold, silver, and precious pearls. He collected all of them. In addition, there were some herbs, elixirs, and other things that were very valuable. He had not let go of them. These barbarians are so poor. They took so many things, but this is all they got. Yang Wu pouted in dissatisfaction. Yang Wu had nothing to do, so he practiced the chaotic horse galloping saber technique. He would wait until little Hay woke up. In the dense forest, not far away, another group of barbarian troops appeared. They were the ones who came to look for the traces of our Rual and the others. This area was very close to the barbarian tribe's garrison and belonged to their border. There were often people patrolling here to prevent the Great Xia scouts from spying on them. However, Arual and the others had not returned after patrolling for many days, which finally attracted the attention of the barbarian army's general. He sent a team of 1,000 people to investigate. After 2 days of investigation, it was certain that Arual and the others had met with misfortune. This could be seen from the fact that they had left the patrol area and some clues. The team in front of them was much stronger than the one led by Arual. The 5 people leading the team were all top-level barbarian generals. Each of them was riding a giant tusked elephant. At first glance, it was obvious that they belonged to the barbarian tribe's most powerful barbarian elephant army. As for the others, they were riding different kinds of war horses, such as war tigers, barbarian bulls, Fergana horses, and so on. In addition, there was a young girl leading the team among them. She was Princess Mingyu, Huangfu Mingyu, who had already arrived at the border of the Great Xia. Huangfu Mingyu was as dazzling as a pearl among the barbarians. She was beautiful and moving, and her figure was even better. No barbarian could resist the charm of this princess, but none of them dared to show it to her directly. This was because, with her noble status, only the strongest warriors of their tribe were worthy of her. Previously, when the Rose of Death appeared, Huangfu Mingyu and her 8th grandfather, Huangfu Taiging, had returned to the barbarian army to avoid any accidents. When this team was about 5 kilometers away from Yang Wu finally sensed something. He wanted to leave with Little Hay immediately, but he remembered that Little Hay had already set up a formation here, so it should be safe. Thus, he continued to stay here and prepare to fight at any time. The team of barbarian army was getting closer and closer to where Yang Wu was. They followed the traces on the ground, and their direction was not wrong. Unfortunately, when they were about 300 feet away from Yang Wu, their traces were cut off. At this moment, Yang Wu, who was hiding in a cluster of rocks, had already held his breath and was ready to fight at any time. The black steel bear, not far away, also hid. Once the enemy came closer, it would definitely kill its way out. At this moment, Little Hay, who was in Yang Wu's arms, woke up. She sensed the situation and then transmitted a message to Yang Wu. "Don't worry, they can't find us." "I hope so," Yang Wu replied. Although he wanted to kill his way out, he did not do so yet. There were so many of these barbarians. He would not be as impulsive as before and kill his way out again. If he wanted to do that kind of work, it would be better to wait until he stepped into the general realm. "Princess, the traces have disappeared here," someone reported to Huangfu Mingyu. "Why have they disappeared? Can they fly into the sky or burrow into the ground?" Huangfu Mingyu frowned. Under her questioning, the scouts didn't know how to answer. Their tracking skills were not bad, but after arriving here, they did not find any more clues. They did not know how to explain it to the princess. A young barbarian who seemed to be about 20 years old next to Huangfu Mingyu said faintly, "Princess, so many people with Arlo disappeared. I'm afraid it was the doing of a king." "That's right. If there was no king, it would be impossible for them to all disappear at once. You should know that Menggu is always by his side. That guy can summon birds. If he wants to escape, no one can stop him unless it's a king," another barbarian general replied. Although Huangfu Mingyu was young, she was not stupid. She pondered for a moment and said, "What you said makes sense, but why would a king lower himself to deal with Arlo and the others? Moreover, once the other party made a move, the king of our tribe should have sensed it. Everyone felt that it made sense, but they really could not figure out where such a large group of people had disappeared to. At this moment, Yang Wu, who was hiding, sneaked out to take a look. When he found that Huangfu Mingyu was among this group of people, he immediately had the urge to rush out, but he forcibly restrained himself. This woman who looks like Little Man is actually the barbarian princess. No matter what method I use, I must capture her and avenge Shou Ho. Yang Wu thought to himself with an extremely determined expression. Then he used his divine sense to speak to Little Hay, who was beside him. Little Hay, do you have a way to separate those people? I want to capture that woman. Kid, I think you shouldn't act recklessly. There are many of them, and their combat strength is not weak. Even if they split up, 2 or 3 of them are enough to pose a threat to you. You should think twice. Little Hay advised. If there's no other way, I'll just kill my way out. I must get justice for Shou Ho. Yang Wu said firmly. Since you're so loyal, I'll help you with this. Little Hay said with a hint of admiration. Then Little Hay suddenly raised its head to the sky and let out a long howl, woof woof. No matter how one listened to this sound, it did not sound dignified at all. Instead, it sounded like the bark of a puppy that had just been weaned off its milk. However, this sound penetrated the surroundings and entered the ears of the surrounding wolf demons, causing them to quickly rush over. At least half of the Wolf Smoke Mountain range was the territory of the wolf demons. The number of wolf demons was unimaginable. Even the Great Xia dynasty and the barbarian race did not dare to offend them. However, these wolf demons were listening to Little Hay's howls. One had to admit that its abilities were extraordinary. Oh, the howls of the wolf demons were transmitted to each other, causing the surrounding wolf demons to gather. Not good, the wolf demons are attacking. There were many barbarian race members who understood the wolf demon signals and immediately shouted out a warning. Chapter 109. Each of the 8 barbarian generals had reached the first level of force. Their powerful brute force was very strong, and they were already attacking Yang Wu, who was in the air. Everyone's eyes were focused on Yang Wu. They wanted to see this Great Xia peasant being assassinated just like that. Yang Wu naturally realized that he had no way to defend himself, so he simply ignored it and mobilized all his strength to run defense. Many acupoints emitted a bright light, and the 4 extraordinary meridians acted as a link, connecting the power of these acupoints. The acupoints were like rainbows and converged to form a defensive mystic armor. This was the symbol of a warlord. However, Yang Wu was still a real warrior, but he had already formed a mystic armor. It had to be said that Shou Hei's extreme tempering was very effective. When Yang Wu formed the mystic armor, those attacks also fell on his body, and a burst of chi explosions rang out incessantly. Many barbarians were overjoyed. They all felt that Yang Wu would definitely die. On the other hand, Huangfu Mingyu cried out involuntarily. Don't tell me I killed him. I said that I would capture him alive. The 8 barbarian generals were extremely aggrieved. They also wanted to capture Yang Wu alive, but if they didn't use some trump cards, Yang Wu would be in front of the princess. Compared to the princess's safety, of course, they knew that capturing Yang Wu alive or killing him was more important. However, when their attacks disappeared, Yang Wu stood in the same place, unharmed. He gently twisted his neck and sneered. Your attacks are really weak. The 8 barbarian generals were aghast. When they were ready to launch another attack, Yang Wu had already moved first. The 2-edged triple dragon spear in his hand slashed across, and a storm of attacks completely drowned them. The 2-edged triple dragon spear became more and more proficient. The power displayed by the rainstorm spear technique was not much weaker than a general technique. The 8 barbarian generals were either dead or injured. None of them could stop Yang Wu's attack. Yang Wu once again started killing at full speed. His handsome eyes were firmly locked on a Huangfu Mingyu, as if she was already a dead person in his eyes. When Huangfu Mingyu saw Yang Wu's sharp eyes, an indescribable feeling suddenly rose in her heart. She thought, this Great Xia man is so domineering. Barbarian women revered martial strength the most. Usually, the strongest warriors, regardless of their appearance, will be able to have a beautiful wife. The battle strength displayed by Yang Wu was comparable to the strongest warriors of the younger generation of the barbarian race. Moreover, he was still so young. Even if he was from the enemy camp, Huangfu Mingyu was still moved. We must block him. Don't let him get close to the princess. Everyone protect the princess and retreat first. This lowlife of Great Xia is very powerful and not easy to deal with. The barbarian army had to deal with the surprise attack of the wolf demon on one hand, and at the same time, they had no way to kill Yang Wu on the other. The resistance Yang Wu was facing was getting stronger and stronger, but he had no way to retreat. He had to kill all the way to the end. After he sent a barbarian and his mount flying, he roared, "Those who block me will die." Yang Wu thrust his spear again and again. Blood sprayed out, and blood-curdling screams resounded incessantly. His body also received a lot of attacks, but the defensive power of the mysterious armor on his body was very strong. It wasn't broken at all because it had fused with the defensive power of the golden silk armor. Therefore, the defensive power of the mysterious armor was very strong. Yang Wu increased his momentum, and endless power surged from the soles of his feet. His killing intent became more and more exuberant, and the Death Dao flower in his divine court was quietly growing stronger. The people beside Huangfu Mingyu kept persuading her to leave first, but Huangfu Mingyu said, "This princess doesn't believe that so many of you can't stop him. This princess wants to see him being captured with my own eyes." At this time, Huyandan once again rode on his golden-hoofed horse and shouted, "All of you, get out of the way. Wait for me to capture him." Huyandan had only injured his shoulder, and this injury wasn't serious. After applying some medicine and bandaging it, he should be able to go into battle again. Huyandan liked Huangfu Mingyu, so he naturally wanted to show off in front of her. Huangfu Mingyu looked at Huyandan and said, "Prince Dan, if you can capture him, I will give you the greatest merit." "Haha, this kid will be captured easily." Huyandan let out a wild laugh and charged towards Yang Wu on his golden-hoofed horse. The barbarians on the left and right hurriedly opened up a path for him. The golden-hoofed horse was a hybrid between the golden crow horse and the Fergana horse. It had an extremely powerful horse and belonged to the demon general realm. Its golden hooves danced in the air, and it ran like the wind. Huyandan quickly appeared in front of Yang Wu. Huyandan raised his polearm and chopped down at Yang Wu's head. Huyandan had already reached the second layer of the brute force astral force. The strength of his attack was not inferior to the one Yang Wu had used to kill a Luo. It gave Yang Wu quite a bit of pressure. Fortunately, the current Yang Wu was no longer the Yang Wu from several days ago. Even if it was a head-on clash, he would not be at a disadvantage. He raised his tri-dragon spear and attacked Huyandan's polearm. As the two war weapons clashed, Huyandan's polearm actually fell to the ground. What? Huyandan was instantly shocked. His polearm was a high-ranked general weapon, yet it was broken just like that. From this, it could be imagined that his opponent's weapon was at least a royal armament. Yang Wu grabbed the absent-minded Huyandan and thrust the tri-dragon spear straight towards his throat. Huyandan was indeed one of the geniuses of the barbarian race. Sitting on the back of his horse, his waist leaned back, and he narrowly dodged Yang Wu's spear. Just as Yang Wu was about to smash downwards, the gold-hoofed horse suddenly showed its might. It raised its front hooves and angrily stomped towards Yang Wu. This time, Yang Wu had no choice but to dodge to the side. The horse's hooves landed on the ground, and two deep pits were created by the stomp. A lot of dust was sent flying. "Goldie, let's retreat." Without even thinking, Huyandan urged the gold-hoofed horse. He had already lost his polearm, and he knew that his opponent's was a royal armament. He didn't even have the courage to continue fighting. "You want to leave and come as you please? How could it be that easy?" Yang Wu coldly snorted. The metal blade in his other hand slashed towards Huyandan and the gold-hoofed horse. The metal blade had no edge, but its profound energy was powerful and tyrannical. A shield appeared in Huyandan's hand and blocked Yang Wu's blade. Unfortunately, he didn't know that Yang Wu's attack was only a feint. The real killing blow was when his double-edged, three-dragon spear swept towards the gold-hoofed horse's leg, breaking the leg of the gold-hoofed horse that weighed several hundred pounds. Hu Yandan was greatly alarmed. He retreated from the gold-hoofed horse and shouted, "You're all dead people. Quickly attack." Just now, he had the courage to challenge Yongwu. Now, he had completely lost his confidence. He was very afraid that the royal armament would land on his head. Even his double-drive defense was not enough. Yongwu didn't want to let Hu Yandan go, but the barbarians on his left and right were already attacking him again. He could only give up on Hu Yandan and defend against the attacks of the other barbarians. Hu Yandan was lucky enough to keep his life. He returned to Huangfu Mingyu's side and said, "Princess, this brat has a royal armament in his hand. We should quickly retreat first. Wait for me to bring the royal armament over. Then we can fight to the death with him. If you want to retreat, then retreat first," Huangfu Mingyu said, revealing a trace of disgust. Hu Yandan was so embarrassed that he couldn't speak. He didn't admit that he was a coward. It was just that it was difficult to fight without his battle weapon. "We can't continue wasting time like this." After Yang Wu killed another 7 or 8 people, he cried out in his heart. He stabbed the three-dragon spear into the ground in front of him, then bent it down. Immediately after, his body shot up like a bow and flew straight towards Huangfu Mingyu. The barbarians around him didn't dare to shoot arrows for fear of accidentally injuring themselves. Only the barbarian generals by Huangfu Mingyu's side unleashed their full strength. Many powerful attacks were madly thrown towards Yongwu. Also at this moment, the black steel bears that had been lying in ambush for a long time rushed out from a direction. Many barbarians in the surroundings were directly smashed into meat paste, causing the barbarian army's formation to become even more chaotic. Yongwu used the defensive power of the golden silk armor to forcefully withstand a wave of attacks. His body received quite a bit of impact, but he still managed to cross the 20 to 30 meters distance and arrived in front of Huangfu Mingyu. "You want to deal with the princess? Do you really think that there's no one in our barbarian race?" An ordinary-looking middle-aged man by Huangfu Mingyu's side sneered, and then he smashed his fist towards Yongwu from afar. The power of this punch was extremely overbearing. It was like the attack of a python and a bull. The power of a 50-feet-long punch ferociously smashed towards Yongwu. This punch was much more powerful than the attacks around him. Yongwu had originally intended to attack Huangfu Mingyu, but he had no choice but to change his direction to block this punch. Rumble. The powerful force immediately exploded. The strength of the explosion forced the surrounding people to scatter in a hurry. Yongwu landed firmly on the ground. He looked at Huangfu Mingyu and the middle-aged barbarian from afar. He completely ignored the other barbarians. "Brat, this old man is not bad. He's about to enter the king realm," Blackie said calmly from Yongwu's shoulder. That fierce attack just now had not affected Blackie at all. He lay motionlessly on Yongwu's shoulder. He moved with Yongwu, but he did not fall off. "No matter who it is, no one can stop me," Yongwu said with a murderous look. At this time, he quietly touched the Death Dao flower in preparation. This time, he was much more careful. He did not dare to fully awaken the Death Dao flower. Otherwise, he would not be able to suppress it and lose his mind. When the other barbarians launched another attack, Huangfu Mingyu raised her hand to stop them. She looked at Yongwu with the air of a general and said, "You want to kill this princess? What do you think?" Yongwu asked coldly. "You want to take revenge for that person called Sundo?" Huangfu Mingyu asked again. "He's dead. You will pay with your life." Yongwu pointed at Huangfu Mingyu with the two-edged three-dragon spear and shouted. In his eyes, no matter how beautiful Huangfu Mingyu was, she was not worthy of his pity. He had to take revenge for his brother. "Princess, why waste words with him? Let me go and take him down," the middle-aged barbarian beside Huangfu Mingyu said faintly. This person was called Huangfu Weiman, and he belonged to a branch of the royal tribe. He was already infinitely close to becoming a king. He had awakened the second layer of brute force supreme force. His battle strength was quite strong, and he was Huangfu Mingyu's personal bodyguard. "No rush. Huangfu Mingyu responded, then looked at Yang Wu and said, "If you are willing to surrender to my tribe, I can let Sun Do go." Chapter 110. Each of the 8 barbarian generals had reached the first layer of brute force. Their powerful brute force was very strong, and they were already attacking Yang Wu, who was in the air. Everyone's gaze was focused on Yang Wu. They all wanted to see this lowly commoner of Great Xia get assassinated just like that. Yang Wu naturally realized that he couldn't defend himself, so he didn't care about it. He mobilized all of his strength to defend himself. Many of his acupoints emitted a bright light, and the 4 extraordinary meridians acted as a link to connect the power of these acupoints. His acupoints were like rainbows as they converged to form a defensive, profound armor. This was the symbol of a warlord. However, Yang Wu was still a true warrior, but he had already formed a profound armor. It had to be said that Little Hay had a remarkable effect on his extreme tempering. When Yang Wu formed his profound armor, those attacks also landed on Yang Wu's body. The sound of profound qi explosions was incessant. Many of the barbarians were overjoyed. They all felt that Yang Wu was definitely going to die. Huangfu Mingyu cried out involuntarily, "Don't tell me we killed him. I said we would capture him alive." The 8 barbarian generals felt extremely wronged. They also wanted to capture Yang Wu alive, but if they didn't use any killing moves, the other party would be in front of the princess. Compared to the princess's safety, they obviously knew which was more important, capturing Yang Wu alive or killing Yang Wu. However, when their attacks disappeared, Yang Wu was still standing in his original position and scathed. He gently twisted his neck and sneered, "Your attacks are really weak." The 8 barbarian generals were overwhelmed with shock. When they were about to launch another attack, Yang Wu had already made his move. The double-blade, triple dragon spear in his hand streaked through the air and unleashed a torrential storm of attacks, completely drowning them. The double-blade, triple dragon spear became more and more handy. The might of the torrential storm spear technique wasn't any weaker than a general's technique. The 8 barbarian generals were either dead or injured. No one could stop Yang Wu's attacks. Yang Wu once again began to kill at full speed, handsome eyes firmly locked on a Huangfu Mingyu, as if in his eyes she was already a dead person. After Huangfu Mingyu came into contact with Yang Wu's sharp eyes, an indescribable emotion suddenly arose in her heart. She thought to herself, "This man from Great Xia is so domineering." The women of the barbarian tribe revered martial prowess the most. Often, the strongest warriors would be able to have beautiful wives regardless of their appearance. The combat prowess that Yang Wu had displayed was comparable to the strongest warrior of the younger generation of the barbarian tribe. Furthermore, he was still so young. Even if he was from the enemy camp, Huangfu Mingyu was still moved. "You must stop him. Don't let him get close to the princess. Everyone, protect the princess and retreat first. This Great Xia commoner is powerful and not easy to deal with." The barbarian tribe army had to deal with the wolf demon surprise attack, while also having no way to kill Yang Wu. They were already in a state of panic. Yang Wu was facing more and more resistance, but he no longer had a way out. He had to kill his way to the end. After sending a barbarian and his mount flying, he roared, "Those who block me will die." Yang Wu's spear pierced out repeatedly. Streams of blood splattered, and miserable screams rang out incessantly. His body also suffered quite a bit of damage, but the layer of Xian armor on his body was very strong. It wasn't broken at all. This was because the defensive power of his golden silk armor was combined. There was no need to talk about its defensive power. Yang Wu increased his momentum, and an endless stream of power surged from the soles of his feet. His killing intent grew stronger and stronger, and the Death Dao flower in his divine court quietly grew stronger. The people beside Huangfu Mingyu kept persuading her to leave first, but Huangfu Mingyu said, "This princess doesn't believe that with so many of you, you can't stop him. This princess wants to see him captured with her own eyes." At this time, Huyandan once again rode on his golden hoof horse and shouted, "All of you, get out of the way. Wait for me to capture him." Huyandan's shoulder was only injured. It wasn't a serious injury. After applying medicine and bandaging, he was more or less able to fight again. Huyan Dan liked Huang Fu Mingyu, so he naturally wanted to perform well in front of her. Prince Dan, if you can capture him, I will give you the greatest merit. Huang Fu Mingyu looked at Huyan Dan and said, "Ha, this brat is easy to capture." After Huyan Dan laughed wildly, he rode his golden hoof horse and charged towards Yang Wu. The barbarians on the left and right quickly opened a path for him. The golden hoof horse was a hybrid between a golden crow horse and a Fergana horse. Its horsepower was very strong, and it belonged to the demon general realm. Its golden hooves flew, and it ran like the wind. It quickly brought Huyan Dan in front of Yang Wu. Huyan Dan raised his halberd and swung it towards Yang Wu's head. Huyan Dan had already reached the second stage of brute force. The strength of his attack was no less than Yang Wu's, and it gave Yang Wu a lot of pressure. Fortunately, Yang Wu was no longer the same as he was a few days ago. Even if he fought head-on, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage. He raised his double-edged three-dragon spear and swung it at Huyan Dan's halberd. When the two weapons collided, Huyan Dan's halberd actually fell to the ground. What? Huyan Dan was shocked. His halberd was a top-grade general weapon, but it was unexpectedly broken. It could be imagined that his opponent's weapon was at least a king weapon. Yang Wu grabbed Huyan Dan's absent-minded Kenzai and swung his double-edged three-dragon spear towards his throat. Huyan Dan was worthy of being called one of the barbarian geniuses. He leaned back on his horse and narrowly dodged Yang Wu's attack. Yang Wu wanted to follow the momentum and smash down, but the golden hoof horse suddenly raised its front hooves and angrily stomped towards Yang Wu. This time, Yang Wu had no choice but to dodge to the side. The horse's hooves landed on the ground, and two deep pits appeared. A lot of dust flew into the air. "Goldie, let's retreat." Huyan Dan urged the golden hoof horse without thinking. He had lost his halberd, and he knew that his opponent's weapon was a king weapon. He didn't even have the courage to fight. "You think you can leave and come as you please? It's not that easy." Yang Wu coldly snorted, and the iron saber in his other hand slashed towards Huyan Dan and the golden hoof horse. The iron saber had no edge, but its mystic chi was powerful and domineering. A shield appeared in Huyan Dan's hand and blocked Yang Wu's saber. Unfortunately, he didn't know that Yang Wu's move was only a feint. The real killing blow was when he swung his double-edged three-dragon spear at the golden hoof horse's legs, breaking its legs and causing it to fall to the ground. Huyan Dan was shocked. He retreated from the golden hoof horse and shouted, "You're all dead. Attack!" Just a moment ago, he still had the guts to challenge Yang Wu, but now he had completely lost his confidence. He was afraid that the king weapon would fall on his head. Even his second drive defense wouldn't be enough. Yang Wu didn't want to let Huyan Dan go, but the barbarians on his left and right were already attacking him again. He could only give up on him and fend off the other barbarians' attacks first. Huyan Dan was lucky enough to survive. He returned to Huang Fu Mingyu's side and said, "Princess, this brat has a king weapon. Let's retreat first. We'll fight him to the death when I get a king weapon. If you want to retreat, you should retreat first." Huang Fu Mingyu said with a hint of disgust. Huyan Dan was so embarrassed that he couldn't say anything. He didn't admit that he was a coward. It was just that it wasn't easy to fight without his weapon. "I can't drag this out any longer." After Yang Wu killed another 7 or 8 barbarians, he cried out in alarm in his heart. He stabbed the double blade and triple dragon spear into the ground in front of him and bent it down forcefully. Then his body shot up like a bow and flew directly towards Huang Fu Mingyu. The barbarians on her left and right didn't dare to shoot arrows for fear of accidentally injuring themselves. Only the barbarian generals around Huang Fu Mingyu did their best. Many powerful attacks blasted towards Yang Wu. At this moment, the black steel bear that had been lying in ambush for a long time charged out from a direction. Many of the barbarians on the periphery were smashed into meat paste, causing the barbarian army's formation to fall into chaos. Yang Wu used the golden silk armor's defensive power to forcefully withstand a wave of attacks. He suffered quite a bit of damage, but he still managed to cross the distance of 20 to 30 meters and arrived in front of Huang Fu Mingyu. You want to deal with the princess? Do you really think that there's no one in the barbarian race who can deal with you? An ordinary-looking middle-aged man beside Huang Fu Mingyu sneered. Then, he blasted a punch towards Yang Wu from a distance. The power of this punch was incomparably overbearing. It was like a python charging towards Yang Wu with a force of over 15 feet. This punch was much more powerful than the attacks on the left and right. Yang Wu was originally planning to attack Huang Fu Mingyu, but he had no choice but to change the direction of his attack to meet this punch. Bang! A powerful force immediately exploded, and the chi energy that spread out forced the surrounding people to quickly disperse. Yang Wu landed solidly on the ground. He looked at Huang Fu Mingyu and the middle-aged barbarian from a distance, completely ignoring the other barbarians. Brat, this old fellow isn't bad. He's about to enter the king realm. Little Hay said indifferently from Yang Wu's shoulder. Little Hay was completely unaffected by the intense attacks from before. She lay on Yang Wu's shoulder without moving at all. She moved along with Yang Wu, but did not fall off. No matter who it is, they can't block my path, Yang Wu said with killing intent. At this moment, he quietly activated the Death Dao flower in preparation. This time, he was much more careful. He didn't dare fully awaken the Death Dao flower. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to suppress it and would lose his mind. When the other barbarians launched another attack, Huang Fu Mingyu raised her hand to stop them. She looked at Yang Wu like a great general and said, "You want to kill this princess? What do you think?" Yang Wu asked coldly. "You want to avenge Sun Do?" Huang Fu Mingyu asked again. "He's dead. You'll pay with your life." Yang Wu pointed his spear at Huang Fu Mingyu and shouted. In his eyes, no matter how beautiful Huang Fu Mingyu was, she wasn't worth his pity. He had to avenge his brother. "Princess, why waste your breath on him? Let me go and take him down." The middle-aged barbarian beside Huang Fu Mingyu said faintly. This person was called Huang Fu Mingyu. He belonged to the side branch of the royal tribe. He was infinitely close to the king realm. He had awakened 2 layers of brute force and was quite powerful. He was Huang Fu Mingyu's personal guard. "No rush," Huang Fu Mingyu responded. Then she looked at Yang Wu and said, "If you're willing to surrender to my tribe, I can let Sun Do go."